My son was still standing with his wine glass raised when the two uniformed officers stepped into my birthday dinner and asked for the colonel. Brian had just called me a lonely burden in front of 14 relatives, 2 waitresses, and a restaurant manager who suddenly found great interest in the carpet. He smiled after he said it. That was Brian's mistake, not the words. I had heard worse words in cleaner rooms. The mistake was laughing before the count was finished. Major Daniel Keene stood inside the private back room of Miller's Table on South Main Street. Sergeant First Class Elena Price stood beside him with a flat brown records packet under one arm. The room went silent. Not quiet. Silent. Brian still had his glass up. Major Keene looked past him. Straight at me. "Ma'am," he said, "are you Colonel Marion Whitaker?" I lowered my eyes for 1 second. In my purse, under a folded handkerchief, sat a sealed Army packet and one notarized form Brian had never bothered to ask about. I keep the count. 2 hours earlier, before my son started performing, I was at the hostess stand correcting a receipt. The manager's name was Ruth. She was maybe 32, young enough to think gray hair meant confusion, old enough to know better. She slid the check toward me with a nervous smile. "Your son said he was handling it," she said. "He says that often." Ruth blinked. I put on my reading glasses and looked at the paper once. Miller's Table had changed owners twice since I first ate there. The old place used to smell like fryer oil and lemon cleaner. Now it smelled like polished wood, butter, and money, trying not to show off. The private back room had framed photos of Bellefontaine, Main Street in winter, the courthouse, a black and white picture of an old rail crossing. Nice enough. Brian liked nice enough. It made debt look organized. I read the receipt from top to bottom. 14 dinners, 2 bottles of wine, 3 iced teas, 1 lemonade for my grandson, Tyler. A chocolate cake Brian had not baked but spoke of like he had raised it from infancy. Then I saw it. "You charged gratuity twice," I said. Ruth leaned closer. "It's included for groups over 8, she said. "Yes. Line 19. I marked it with my pen, then again on line 23. She took the receipt back. Her face changed. "You're right. I know." I did not say it sharply. Sharp waists motion. She flushed and reached for the register. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Whitaker." "Colonel Whitaker?" I said. Then I softened it. A little. Retired. Her fingers paused over the keys. "Oh, I didn't realize. Most people don't." That was true. I did not wear my years around my neck. I kept them where they belonged. In records. In scars I did not discuss. In habits that stayed after the uniform came off. Count the exits. Face the door. Read the paper twice if you must, but never need a third time. Ruth fixed the charge. $48.60 came off the bill. Brian would have called that petty. Brian had once paid $900 for a watch he could not afford because the salesman called him Sir. I signed the receipt. My hand did not shake. "Birthday dinner?" Ruth asked. 79, I said. "Happy birthday. Thank you." From the back room, I heard Brian laughing. Loud, polished, for sale. He had the same laugh he used at open houses. He sold ranch homes, lake lots, and false confidence. His office sat on Columbus Avenue with his name in blue letters on the glass. Brian Whitaker Realty, the responsible one. He liked that phrase. He wore it better than the truth. I folded my copy of the receipt and slid it into my purse. The sealed packet was there. So was the notarized allotment cancellation form. I touched the edge of the packet with 2 fingers. Old paper. Smooth tape. Government weight. Then I closed the purse. Not yet. When I walked into the private room, my family was already seated. My daughter-in-law, Lisa, sat beside Brian. Her smile looked tired around the edges. My grandson, Tyler, was 12 and hunched over his phone. My niece, Carol, waved from the far end. There were balloons tied to my chair, silver, white, blue. Brian had chosen blue because he said it was patriotic for Mom. I had worn army green for 31 years. Brian bought balloons, a common civilian compromise. Here she is, Brian said. Everyone turned. My son stood and clapped once. Birthday girl finally made it. I was settling the receipt. His smile tightened. I told you I had it. You almost had it twice. A few people laughed softly. Brian did not. Lisa looked down at her napkin. Tyler looked up from his phone for half a second. I sat in the chair with the balloons. Someone had placed me at the center of the long table. That was for photographs, not comfort. The room held 14 people from my side and Thomas's side, Whitakers mostly, 2 Millers by marriage, 1 cousin I had not seen since Tyler's baptism. Family makes a crowd look innocent. Brian leaned behind my chair. Mom, you don't have to audit your own birthday party. I audit anything with numbers on it. I know, he said. You keep the count. He said it sweetly. That was worse. I looked at my water glass. I do. Carol passed me a small wrapped box. Open mine first, she said. It's not much. Not much is often useful. Inside was a pair of wool socks, thick gray ones, good heel, no nonsense. These are fine socks, I said. Carol smiled like I had praised her child. Brian watched from the head of the table. He had put himself there. Of course he had. There are men who sit at the head because others ask them to. There are men who arrive early and move the place cards. Brian was the second kind. He tapped his knife against his glass. Before we eat, he said, I want to say something. Lisa's shoulders sank. I noticed that. I noticed most things. Brian looked around the room. He had a tan in April. His hair was darker than it had been at Christmas. His white shirt was open at the collar, just enough to suggest ease. 79 years, he said. That's a long run. Aunt Diane murmured. Amen. Brian raised his glass toward me. Mom has been through a lot, losing Dad, living alone, trying to keep up that old house off Sandusky Avenue. My fingers rested on the table. Still. We all know she doesn't like asking for help, Brian said. Because I usually don't need it. He chuckled. See? Stubborn as ever. No one laughed much that time. He continued. But there's a point where pride becomes a problem, and family has to step in. There it was, not a toast, a filing. I looked at him. What family decision was made without me? Brian's smile stayed in place. Mom, tonight isn't the time. You picked up a glass. He looked around, inviting sympathy. She does this. She turns everything into cross-examination. I asked one question. And I love that about you, he said. He did not. The waitress came in with salads. Poor girl had timing fit for artillery. She set plates down in a silence that had turned stiff. Brian waited until she left. Then he sat forward. I've spoken with a buyer. My fork stayed beside the plate. For what? For the house. Carol's mouth opened. Lisa closed her eyes. Brian held up one hand. Nothing is final. Then why speak with a buyer? Because someone has to plan. I plan. Mom. He said it like a warning. I heard that tone and remembered him at 16, standing in the kitchen with a dented fender, explaining that stop signs were more like suggestions at empty corners. Brian had always negotiated with facts after losing to them. He leaned closer. The place is too much for you. The stairs, the furnace, the yard. You're alone in there. I live there. Exactly. Tyler shifted in his chair. I did not look at him. Children learn too much at adult tables. Brian lowered his voice, but not enough. I found a community near Marysville. Clean place. Safe. They have activities. Activities. Bingo, meals, church shuttle. I spent 3 decades reading logistics reports. I can locate a church. A few smiles appeared. Brian's jaw moved. It isn't funny. No. I picked up my water. It isn't. He set his glass down. Mom, I've been carrying this for years. There was the first lie, not the last. He kept going. The bills, the appointments, the paperwork, the constant calls. Do you know what that does to a person? I looked at Lisa. She did not look back. Brian spread his hands. And then people judge me. They see me trying. They don't see the pressure. Aunt Diane touched his sleeve. We know, honey. Honey. Brian took that like permission. Everybody here loves you, Mom, but love has to be honest. I waited. He looked around the table. You're becoming a lonely burden. The word landed. Burden. He said it gently. That made it uglier. A drunk will swing wild. A polished man places the knife. Carol whispered. Brian. He ignored her. It's not an insult, he said. It's reality. I folded my napkin once, squared the corners. Old habits. Brian gave a small laugh. Come on. Everyone knows we're all paying for this pity party one way or another. That was when the room changed. Not enough for him to notice. Enough for me. Tyler put his phone down. Lisa's face went pale. My nephew Mark looked at his plate. I did not answer right away. Silence is not surrender. Sometimes it's inventory. I counted 3 things. The word burden, the claim about paying, the announcement about my house. Then I counted the people who corrected him. 1. Carol. That mattered. I turned to Brian. Who is we? He blinked. What? You said we are all paying. Mom, don't start. I asked who. He laughed again. Me, Lisa, the family, the people keeping things together, the people. Yes. And what amount have you paid toward my care this month? His smile thinned. This isn't a board meeting. No. A board meeting keeps minutes. Mark coughed into his hand. Brian's face reddened. I handle things you don't even understand anymore. That one almost amused me. Almost. At 79, I understood compound interest, supply chains, casualty notifications, and why a man avoids exact figures in public. I understood my son very well. I said, name one. His eyes hardened. Your survivor paperwork. The room went still again. There it was. He should not have said that. The packet in my purse seemed heavier. Brian leaned back, pleased with himself. You think those benefits manage themselves? You think forms just appear? I've been dealing with the veterans people for years. The Veterans Service Office is on East Columbus Avenue. So? You told me last month it was in Urbana. He froze for less than a second. Only less. I meant the regional contact. Which one? Mom. Name. He picked up his wineglass. This is exactly what I mean. Paranoia. Suspicion. A lonely old woman making enemies out of help. Burden had been careless. Lonely old woman was strategy. I saw Lisa flinch. That told me she had heard it before. I reached for my purse and placed it on my lap. I did not open it. Not there. Not yet. I went to the Logan County Veterans Service Office this morning, I said. Brian stopped moving. Ruth entered with a tray of bread and saw the room. She backed out without a word. Smart woman. Brian recovered. Why would you do that? Copies. Copies of what? Dates, signatures, allotments. The last word found him. His hand tightened around the stem of the glass. Mom, you don't know what you're talking about. I usually do by the second page. Aunt Diane looked from him to me. What allotments? Brian gave her a quick smile. Nothing, just army paperwork. Mom gets confused by it. Confused. That was a smaller word than burden, still useful. I kept my voice level. At 9:20 this morning, Mr. Hensley printed my request history, 3 pages. He also gave me a phone number in Columbus. Brian stared at me. I went on. At 10:08, I called it. During my workday? Brian said. There it was again. His trouble wearing my name. Yes, you should have called me first. Why? Because I handle those matters. Not anymore. The room did not breathe. I heard the kitchen door swing somewhere outside. Plates clattered. A server laughed, then stopped. Brian leaned forward. You don't get to embarrass me in front of everyone. I looked at the wine glass in his hand. You started with a toast. His mouth opened. No words came. For a moment, I saw him at 8 years old. Knees muddy, hair stuck to his forehead, crying because Thomas would not let him quit Little League after striking out. Thomas had knelt in the grass and said, Son, quitting is allowed after honesty, not before. Brian had hated that. Some children grow around a lesson. Some grow away from it. I did not want revenge on my son. That is true. I wanted my house left alone. I wanted my name removed from his stories. I wanted the numbers to stand where he had been standing. That was all. The waitress returned with salads again. Ruth followed her this time. Is everything all right in here? Ruth asked. Brian turned with relief. Yes, family stuff. Ruth looked at me. I gave one small nod. She set down the plates. My salad had cucumbers sliced thin. Thomas used to remove his and put them on my plate. He said cucumbers tasted like wet nickels. He had been gone 6 years. Off stage, quietly. In a hospital room where Brian arrived 20 minutes late and complained about parking. I did not think about that often. Thinking does not change the count. Brian waited until Ruth left again. Then he lowered his voice. You went behind my back. No. No? I went around your story. Carol made a small sound. Not a laugh. Not quite. Brian pointed at my purse. What is in there? My wallet. What else? House keys. Mom. Socks from Carol. He slapped his palm lightly on the table. Enough. There was the broker voice. I had heard him use it on contractors, on Lisa, on bank clerks who did not approve things fast enough. Volume pretending to be command, a common civilian illness. I picked up my fork and took one bite of salad. It needed salt. Brian stared at me. Are you seriously eating? Yes. We're discussing your future. No, you announced your plan because you won't face reality. I set the fork down. Here is reality. My house on Sandusky Avenue is in my name. My pension comes to my account. My survivor documents belong to me. My signature is still required. Brian looked toward Mark. Mark looked away. Smart man. You don't understand what I've sacrificed, Brian said. I almost answered too quickly. I stopped. Anger makes poor paperwork. Instead, I reached into my purse and pulled out one folded sheet. Not the sealed packet. Not the notarized form. Only the corrected dinner receipt. I laid it beside my plate. Brian frowned. What is that? The restaurant charged gratuity twice. I corrected it. He stared. You're impossible. $48.60. Nobody cares about $48. I do. That's your problem. No, I said. That is why my accounts balance. His face changed again. The table watched him see the door and dislike it. He had expected a frail mother, a birthday cake, a public nudge toward surrender. Instead, he had numbers. Numbers are rude guests. They do not flatter. Brian drank the rest of his wine. Fine, he said. You want numbers? Yes, I've covered shortfalls for you. Which shortfalls? Repairs, medical trips, groceries, dates? He laughed once. Listen to yourself. I am. You sound like you're interrogating your own son. No. I asked for dates. He stood then. Chair legs scraped the floor. Tyler jumped. Lisa whispered, Brian, sit down. He did not. Do you all see this? He asked the room. This is what I deal with. Every week, every call, every little bill, every panic. I do not panic. He pointed at me. You forget things. I forgot your anniversary in 2018. You forgot to pay your office taxes in 2024. The words left my mouth before I could soften them. Brian went white. There are shots you should not fire unless you know the range. I knew the range. Lisa looked at him. What taxes? Brian's voice dropped. Don't. I sat back. There it was, the first open seam. He looked at me with something close to fear. Not fear of me, fear of the Count. Who told you that? He asked. Your lender called my house by mistake last Thursday. That's confidential. It became less so when they asked if my army allotment would continue as collateral support. The room went flat. Aunt Diane whispered, Collateral? Brian looked at the door. I looked too. No officers yet. No brown packet under Sergeant Price's arm. Only my family, a cooling salad, and my son standing over a lie he had dressed for dinner. Mom, he said carefully, you misunderstood. Maybe. He exhaled. Thank you. So I went to the office this morning. His relief disappeared. Mr. Hensley did not misunderstand, I said. Brian sat down slowly. Good. A seated man tells on himself differently. I folded the receipt and put it back into my purse. My fingers touched the sealed packet again. The tape was still unbroken. That mattered. I had promised myself I would not open it until the right person was present. Mr. Hensley had said someone was coming. He did not say when. He only said, Colonel Whitaker, please keep that packet with you tonight. Colonel. He had said it with care, not surprise. Care. Then he gave me Major Keene's card and watched me place it in my purse. Brian did not know that part. He knew less than he thought. Most men do. The salad sat untouched around the table. Carol finally spoke. Brian, is Mom's money tied to your office? No, he said. Too fast. Lisa turned toward him. Brian, he snapped. Not now. Tyler stared at his father. That hurt more than Brian's words. A son can disappoint a mother. A father disappoints a boy in longer shadows. I took a sip of water. Tyler, I said. His eyes moved to me. Eat your salad. He looked confused. Ma'am, eat. This is adult foolishness. It should not ruin the cucumber. For some reason, that broke the room enough for Carol to breathe. Tyler picked up his fork. Good boy. Brian rubbed his face with both hands. Then the broker returned. Smooth, tired, noble. Mom is proud, he said to everyone. Dad always said that. Proud people hide decline. I did not move. They lash out, Brian said. They imagine plots. They cling to houses they can't maintain. He looked at Aunt Diane. I didn't want to say this tonight. That was another lie. He had wanted an audience. He just wanted a kinder one. But yes, he continued, I've been working on a sale. For her safety. For her dignity. Dignity. Some words should require a license. He looked back at me. There is a buyer ready. Good offer. Clean terms. I was going to explain after dinner. What is the offer? He hesitated. Mom. The number. This isn't appropriate. You brought my house to dinner. Carol said, Brian, answer her. He glared at Carol. 210,000. I laughed once. I did not mean to. It escaped. Brian's eyes flashed. Something funny? My neighbor sold for 286 last month. Smaller lot. Worse roof. That market is different. Same street. Different condition. My roof is 9 years old. He blinked. Your furnace is old. Serviced in October. Foundation? Dry. Windows? Paid for in 2019. He stopped. I kept the count. He had no room left but insult. He took it. You see, he said, this is why she's alone. No one spoke. He lifted his glass again, always correcting, always suspicious, always making people feel small. I watched my son hold court at my 79th birthday dinner. I thought of Thomas's closet at home. His dress blues still hung in a garment bag. I had not moved them in 6 years, not because I was weak. Because cloth can hold a shape longer than grief needs it to. On the top shelf sat his old dress uniform button tin, round, dented, black with a gold rim. I had taken it down that morning after the veterans' office. I had expected spare buttons, maybe cufflinks. Instead, I found Thomas's handwriting. Marion, when the records come due, stop covering for the boy. I had stood there in the bedroom off Sandusky Avenue, coat hangers, shoe polish, dust on the window ledge. For 1 minute, I was not a colonel. I was a widow holding a note from a dead man who still knew me too well. Then I folded the note and put it with the form. I kept the count. At Miller's table, Brian raised his voice. Everyone here knows I am the only reason she's not helpless. Lisa whispered, "Please stop." He did not. She sits in that house alone. She calls me over nothing. She acts like a receipt is a battlefield. I looked at the purse in my lap. The sealed packet waited. So did the form. So did Thomas's note. Brian smiled at the table. She's just a lonely burden. The door opened behind him. This time, Ruth did not come in. 2 uniforms did. The taller one was a man in his 40s with close-cut hair and a dress uniform that fit without effort. The woman beside him carried a brown records folder against her ribs. She did not scan the room like a guest looking for a chair. She counted exits, faces, hands. I knew that look. Brian turned first. His smile came back too quickly. "This is a private room," he said. The man looked at Ruth, who stood behind them with both hands folded. "Ma'am," he said, "we're looking for Mrs. Marion Whitaker." Brian laughed once. "You found her," he said. "But this isn't a good time." The woman's eyes moved past him and settled on me. "Mrs. Whitaker?" I set my napkin beside my plate. "Yes." Brian put his wineglass down. "Who are you?" The man reached into his breast pocket and showed an identification card. He did not hand it to Brian. "Major Daniel Keene, Ohio National Guard liaison." The woman opened her folder just enough to show the top page. Sergeant First Class Elena Price, Records and Awards. Awards. That word moved through the room without a sound. Brian caught it too. His shoulders changed. "Records for what?" he asked. Major Keene kept his eyes on me. "Mrs. Whitaker, may we speak with you privately?" Brian stepped between us. "No, absolutely not." Lisa looked up. "Brian." He ignored her. "My mother is confused tonight," he said. "Whatever this is, you can call me Monday." Sergeant Price looked at him then. Only looked. Brian added, "I'm her son." "That may be," Price said. "It may be. Being a son isn't the same as being authorized." Aunt Diane whispered, "Oh." Brian heard it. His neck reddened again. "I handle her affairs," he said. Major Keene said, "That is one reason we're here." No one moved. The room was not quiet, silent. Brian gave a careful smile. "Well, then you can discuss it with me." I stood before he could say more. My knees made their small complaint. I ignored them. Pain is information. It is not command. "Major," I said. "Sergeant, we can use the hall." Brian turned on me. "Sit down." 2 words. He had never said them to me like that before. Not in that tone. Not in front of family. Carol stood halfway from her chair. "Brian, stop." He pointed at her. "Stay out of this." Tyler's fork clicked against his plate. I looked at my grandson. His face had gone tight around the mouth. A boy remembers the first time a father sounds small. He may not know he is remembering. He is. I picked up my purse. Brian saw it and reached across the table. "Give me that." His fingers brushed the strap. Sergeant Price moved one step. Not fast, not dramatic. Just enough. Brian stopped. "Sir," she said, "don't touch her property." He looked offended. "She's my mother." "She's holding her purse." Plain words do good work. Major Keene turned to Ruth. "Is there a small office?" Ruth nodded. "By the coat room." I walked toward the door. No one spoke. I could feel Brian behind me, deciding whether to follow. Men like Brian hate witnesses until witnesses become useful. He followed. Lisa followed him. So did Carol. Tyler started to rise, but I shook my head. "Stay and eat," I said. "I'm not hungry." "Then sit anyway." He sat. Good boy. The hallway outside the private room smelled of coffee, floor cleaner, and hot butter. Miller's table had framed photographs of Bellefontaine on the wall. Main Street in winter, the courthouse, a parade with flags. One picture showed Sandusky Avenue from years before, when the maples were younger and the sidewalks looked wider. Ruth opened a narrow office and stepped back. "It's small," she said. "It will do," I said. Brian came in without invitation. Lisa stayed at the doorway. Carol stood behind her. Major Keene did not ask them to leave. That told me something. He wanted witnesses, too. The office had a desk, 2 chairs, a printer, and a corkboard with schedules. I took the chair nearest the wall. Brian remained standing. Standing helped him feel taller than facts. Sergeant Price placed her folder on the desk. "Mrs. Whitaker," Major Keene said, "did you receive our first letter?" "No." Brian folded his arms. "What letter?" Price looked at her file. "A notice dated May 12th, delivered to the address on record, Sandusky Avenue." "My address," I said. Brian's eyes shifted. Major Keene asked, "Did anyone else collect mail there?" "My son has a key." "For emergencies," Brian said. No one had asked him. Price turned one page. "We have a signed receipt." Brian said, "Then she got it." I looked at him. "No." He lifted both hands. "Mom, you forget mail all the time." I did not answer that. Price took a photocopy from the folder and placed it on the desk. She turned it toward me. "Is this your signature?" I leaned forward. The name was mine. The hand was not. Marion L. Whitaker. The M had a loop I never used. The W ran too wide. Whoever signed it pressed hard enough to bruise the paper. "No," I said. Brian let out a breath. "It's probably one of those delivery scribbles." Major Keene said this was not a carrier receipt. Price added, "It was returned with a representative acknowledgement." Brian went still. Lisa stepped into the room. "Representative?" Brian said, "Lisa, don't." Price kept her voice flat. "The acknowledgement states Mrs. Whitaker's designated family representative received the notice, reviewed the ceremony schedule, and requested a change of contact." Ceremony. Carol's hand covered her mouth. I kept looking at the signature. A false name can feel personal. It is not only ink. It is someone entering your hand without permission. Brian said, "This is ridiculous." Major Keene turned to him. "Did you submit a contact change?" "I submit a lot of paperwork for her." "Did you submit this one?" Brian's face hardened. "I don't remember." That was the first honest answer he had given all night. Major Keene nodded once. "Then we'll note that." Brian looked at me. "Mom, they're making this sound criminal." "No one used that word," I said. "You're letting strangers accuse me." "They brought a copy." He laughed. "A copy. Great, a copy." Sergeant Price slid the paper back into her folder. "Mrs. Whitaker, the notice concerned 2 matters. One is ceremonial, one is administrative." Brian said, "What does that mean?" Price did not look at him. The ceremonial matter can wait. The disappointment in Carol's face was quick. She thought the officers had come to honor me. Part of them had. Not yet. Not here. Not while Brian was still trying to own the room. Major Keene said, "The administrative matter cannot wait past tomorrow morning." Brian's voice sharpened. "Why?" Major Keene looked at him then. "Because a benefit direction on Mrs. Whitaker's record is being used in a pending financial verification." Lisa's eyes closed. Carol whispered, "Brian." He snapped, "Nobody knows that." There, not denial, ownership. Major Keene said nothing. I did. "Who is verifying it?" Brian turned toward me. "Mom." "Who?" His jaw worked. "It's temporary." Lisa's voice came thin. "What is temporary?" Brian rubbed both hands over his face again. "My office has a refinance. That's all." Price opened another section of the folder. "Mrs. Whitaker, did you authorize your monthly support allotment to be listed as income under Whitaker Realty Services?" "No." Brian said, "It's not listed as income." Major Keene looked at the page. "It is described as continuing family care support." "That's different," Brian said. "Not to a lender," Lisa said. He looked at her as if she had slapped him. She did not lower her eyes. "Good." Major Keene took a sealed inner envelope from the folder. It bore a printed label and a red strip. He placed it near my purse, but he did not open it. "Mr. Hensley told us you carried a packet." I touched my purse. "Yes." "Is the seal intact?" "Yes." Brian stared. "What packet?" I opened my purse and removed the brown packet. The table in Ruth's office was small. The packet seemed too large for it. Brian reached, then stopped when Price looked at his hand. I laid it beside Major Keene's envelope. "Mr. Hensley said to keep it with me." "He was right," Price said. Brian laughed under his breath. "This is insane. You people show up at a birthday dinner with envelopes?" "Documents," I said. He glared at me. "Fine. Documents." Major Keene said, "Mrs. Whitaker, before we proceed, I need to confirm one thing. Did you sign a cancellation form today?" "Yes." Brian's head came up. "What cancellation?" I did not look at him. "An allotment cancellation." His face changed fully then. No smoothness, no noble tiredness. Just fear. "You can't do that." I did. "You don't understand the timing." "I understand signatures." He stepped closer. "Mom, listen to me." Price said, "Stay where you are." Brian looked at her. "I'm talking to my mother." "No," she said. "You're pressuring a beneficiary." The word hung there, beneficiary. Brian hated it. It placed me on paper without his story wrapped around me. Lisa asked, "What happens tomorrow morning?" Major Keene answered her. "A verification request is scheduled for 8:30. If the cancellation is entered tonight, the allotment cannot be represented as continuing support." Brian said, "That will ruin everything." No one spoke. He heard himself. I watched him hear it. Lisa whispered, "Everything?" Brian turned to her with panic in his eyes. "The office. Payroll. The lease. It's one morning." "You used her name for payroll?" "No, don't twist it." Carol stepped into the doorway. "Brian, you tried to sell her house for less." "That has nothing to do with this." "It has everything to do with this," Carol said. Her voice shook. She kept going. "You needed her moved, then you needed her house." Brian pointed at me. "She needs care." I said, "Do I?" He leaned toward me. "Yes. Name the care." He opened his mouth. No answer. I waited. Major Keene waited. Sergeant Price waited. Brian looked at the hallway, then back at me. "You call me." "For what?" "Things." What things? Stop doing this. I kept my voice even. I called last month about the furnace filter. You said filters were complicated and I should let you manage the house. You were overwhelmed. I had already changed it. Lisa looked at him. He looked away. I continued. I called in March because your father's pension statement was missing. You said the mail was late. Brian swallowed. It was. It was in your car. His eyes narrowed. How do you know? Because Tyler brought me my library book from your back seat. The statement was under it. Lisa looked like she might sit down, but there was no chair. Tyler had not told his father. Good boy again. Brian's voice dropped. You've been spying on me. No, I've been living in my own life. Major Keene tapped the envelope lightly. Mrs. Whitaker, the cancellation can still be transmitted tonight. We came because the signature must be witnessed against the sealed record. Brian said, Tonight? No, offices are closed. Price said, Our office isn't. On a Friday night? Yes. This is overreach. Major Keene looked at him. Sir, this is records correction. Brian turned back to me. Mom, please. That word did something to the room. Please. Not command, not performance. Need. For 1 second, I saw the boy with muddy knees again, but the man had used too many doors and called them duty. I put my hand flat on the purse. Why did you take the letter? He blinked. I didn't. Then why change contact? I was protecting you. From an awards notice? He said nothing. Major Keene's expression did not change, but Price wrote something on a small pad. Brian saw it. Don't write that. Price kept writing. I said don't. She looked up. I heard you. Lisa's voice was very soft. Brian, what award? He turned on her. Why does that matter? Because you hid it. I didn't hide anything. Carol said, You just said you were protecting her. From confusion, Brian snapped. From stress. From this. He threw one hand toward the officers. My mother doesn't need strangers showing up and stirring things up. Major Keene said, Mrs. Whitaker asked for copies. She doesn't know what she asked for. I looked at my son. That is enough. He froze. I had not raised my voice. I had not needed to. Some commands are old. They still work. I turned to Major Keene. What must I do? Brian took one step back. Price removed a single-page form from her folder. Not the citation, not the rank confirmation, not the full record. A working page, a narrow hinge. This verifies your earlier signature, she said. It also confirms no family representative may receive notices on your behalf without a new notarized authorization. Brian said, She can't sign that without counsel. Major Keene said, She may decline. I read the page, every line, date, name, account reference, cancellation of third-party direction, revocation of representative contact, verification requested by beneficiary in person at Logan County Veterans Service Office, witnessed by Daniel Keene and Elena Price. My name sat in the center. Mine, not his. I took the pen. Brian whispered, Mom. I did not look up. He tried again. Please don't do this at dinner. I signed, plainly, Marion L. Whitaker. My hand did not shake. Sergeant Price signed below me. Major Keene signed next. He took a photo with a secure device, then placed the original in his folder. Brian stared at the paper as if he could still talk it into changing. Major Keene said, The office will receive the cancellation tonight. Brian's mouth opened. Price added, The lender verification will show no continuing support authority. Lisa covered her lips with 2 fingers. Carol leaned against the doorframe. Brian looked at me, and for the first time that night he did not seem angry. He seemed naked. You don't know what you've done, he said. I know exactly. My staff will lose their jobs. Then tell them the truth. He shook his head. You'd let that happen? I'm not letting anything happen. I'm stopping my name. He gave a small, bitter laugh. There she is. I stood. Yes. The office seemed smaller after that. Too many people. Too much breath. I wanted the room behind us, the cold salad, Tyler safe in his chair. I wanted the evening to end. It would not. Brian blocked the doorway. Major Keene said, Sir. Brian did not move. Mom, he said, come back to the table and say this was a misunderstanding. No. Say you were upset. No. Say the officers caught you at a bad time. No. Each no cost less than the last. He looked toward Lisa. Help me. She stared at him. Did you use her benefits? I used available documentation. That's not an answer. It kept us alive. Us? Our life, the office, the house. Lisa flinched. Our house. Brian closed his eyes. I knew then there was another page somewhere. Not in my purse, not in Price's folder, in Brian's own mess. Major Keene did not chase it. Good officers know the size of their assignment. Price said, Mrs. Whitaker, do you want us to remain while you return? Brian answered first. No. I said, yes. He looked at me. Mom. Yes, I repeated. We walked back to the private room together, not in formation, not formally. Still, people noticed. Diners in the main room turned their heads. Ruth stood near the service station with a stack of plates in her hands. She did not pretend not to watch. In the private room, Tyler stood when I entered. That nearly undid me. Not the officers, not the papers. A boy standing because he did not know what else respect looked like, but he knew it was needed. Sit, I told him. He did not. Brian came in behind us. His face had gone pale and hard. Aunt Diane looked from him to me. What happened? Brian said, Nothing. Mom signed something she doesn't understand. Major Keene remained by the door. Price stood near the sideboard. I sat at my place. The salad was wilted. The cucumbers had gone warm. Thomas would have complained. I almost smiled. Brian stayed standing. This is family business, he said to the room. Everybody can relax. No one relaxed. Lisa came in last. She did not sit beside him. She stood behind Tyler's chair. Carol took her seat slowly. Aunt Diane asked, Marion, are you all right? Yes. Brian gave a sharp laugh. She's fine. She just canceled the one arrangement that was keeping her affairs organized. That's not what it was, Lisa said. He turned. Don't start. I'm already in it. Tyler looked up at her. She put one hand on his shoulder. Brian saw that too. It landed. He faced the table. Since everyone wants a show, here it is. My mother has decided I'm the villain because I helped manage payments after Dad died. I watched Major Keene's eyes move to me. He would not interrupt unless needed. This was not his family. Not yet. Brian continued. Dad left things messy. My hand tightened once around the edge of my napkin. That was the wrong road for him. Thomas left things exact, I said. Brian rolled his eyes. Dad left boxes and old uniforms. And a button tin. He stopped. The words had found him. Lisa looked at me. What button tin? I reached into my purse and removed the folded note. Not the sealed packet. Not the full record. Only Thomas's note. Brian whispered, Don't. Carol heard him. So did I. I unfolded the paper. Thomas's handwriting was still strong. He had written with a black pen, probably at the kitchen table on Sandusky Avenue. He had pressed harder at the end. I did not read all of it. Some things belonged to a marriage. I read the line that mattered. Marion, when the records come due, stop covering for the boy. No one moved. Brian sat down as if his legs had failed him. Lisa's eyes filled, but she did not cry. Aunt Diane made the sign of the cross. Tyler stared at his father, then at me. Grandpa wrote that? He asked. Yes. When? I don't know. Brian's voice was rough. He had no right. That sentence told me more than denial would have. I folded the note. He knew, I said. Brian shook his head. He guessed. He counted. That ended it for a moment. Ruth appeared at the door with the main courses and stopped again. Poor woman. Brian looked at the plates, then at all of us. Can we eat, or is there more theater? Major Keene said, We can step out if Mrs. Whitaker wishes. Brian seized on it. Good. Step out. I looked at the officers. Please stay nearby. Yes, ma'am, Price said. Brian flinched at ma'am as if it were a title. The officers moved to the hall. They did not leave. Through the open door, I could see Price's shoulder near the wall. Ruth set down plates with both hands steady. Meatloaf for Diane, chicken for Carol, walleye for Mark. Brian's steak, my baked chicken with green beans. No cake yet, not yet. The dinner continued because public meals do that. Plates arrive, forks move, people chew because they do not know where else to put their shame. Brian cut his steak once, too hard. The knife scraped china. Lisa did not touch her food. Tyler whispered, Dad. Brian did not answer. Dad, Tyler said again. What? Did Grandma pay for your office? Brian shut his eyes. Lisa said, Answer him. He's a child. He asked you. Brian threw his napkin onto the table. Fine, she helped. Families help. I said, I helped after the tax notice. He glared at me. Don't. I helped after the lease increase. Mom, I helped after the lender declined you in April. Lisa stared at him. April? Brian's voice dropped. You're destroying me. No, I said. I'm naming receipts. Mark finally spoke. Brian, did you tell us she was costing you money? Brian turned on him. Stay out of it. Mark did not. You said you paid her utilities. I handled them. Did you pay them? Brian's silence answered. Aunt Diane's face changed slowly. She had patted his sleeve. She had called him honey. Now she saw the stain on her own kindness. She looked at me. Marion, I'm sorry. Eat your meatloaf. She blinked. Then she laughed once, sad and small. I can't. Then take it home. That helped the room breathe again. Only a little. Brian leaned back in his chair. You're all enjoying this. Lisa said, No one is enjoying this. Carol added, You made her beg for respect at her own birthday. I did not. You called her a burden. He looked at me. She is alone. I said, Alone is a living arrangement. No one answered. I picked up my fork and ate one green bean. It was overcooked. Brian watched me. You can't maintain that house. I can. Not forever. No one does anything forever. You'll fall. Maybe. You'll need help. Then I'll hire it. With what? That came out too fast. He knew it. I set my fork down. With my pension, my savings, my survivor benefit, my house equity, if I choose, my accounts, now that they will remain mine. Price appeared in the doorway again. Mrs. Whitaker. I looked up. Yes? She held a phone against her folder. Transmission confirmed. Brian's chair scraped back. Already? Major Keene's voice came from behind her. Confirmed at 1946. Military time. Plain. Exact. Brian looked at his watch as if time had betrayed him too. Lisa asked, What does confirmed mean? Price said, The cancellation is entered. The representative hold is active pending review. Brian whispered, Pending review. The words took the last color from him. Not punishment. Procedure. Procedure has no temper. That is why it frightens people who depend on confusion. Major Keene stepped into view. Mrs. Whitaker, we should also tell you one more item tonight, privately if you prefer. Brian laughed without humor. Of course there's more. I looked at the major. Is it about the ceremony? Yes. The room shifted. Brian stood again. No. That single word told everyone the answer before the question. Major Keene did not address him. Your recognition notice was delayed by the contact change. The scheduled event was tonight. At Miller's? Carol asked. No, Keene said. At the Armory. I absorbed that. The Armory. While Brian raised a glass and called me a burden, a room elsewhere had been set for a woman he preferred hidden. Price added, We came here after Mr. Hensley reached us. Brian sat down again. No speech, no defense. Lisa's hand remained on Tyler's shoulder. Tyler asked, Grandma, were you supposed to get a medal? I looked at the sealed packet. I don't know. Brian said, It's old paperwork. Major Keene's eyes moved to him. It is a delayed commendation. Brian swallowed. For what? That is for Mrs. Whitaker to hear first. Good man. He held the line. Not tonight, not fully. The packet stayed sealed. I placed my hand over it. Brian stared at my fingers. For the first time all evening, he seemed to understand that the story had left his mouth and entered paper. Paper does not get tired. Paper does not smooth things over for Thanksgiving. Paper waits. Ruth came in with the birthday cake. 79 candles would have been foolish, so Carol had ordered 2 numbers, a 7 and a 9, white frosting, lemon filling. My favorite. Brian had not known that. Carol had. Ruth said it in front of me. No one sang. Then Tyler began, softly. Happy birthday to you. His voice cracked on birthday. Carol joined him, then Lisa, then Aunt Diane. Mark came in late. Ruth sang too from the doorway. Brian did not sing. I watched the candles burn low. At 79, wishes change. You stop asking life to be gentle. You ask it to be plain. I blew out the candles. Both went dark. Tyler clapped once, then stopped. He was embarrassed. I smiled at him. That was correct, I said. He smiled back, barely. Brian pushed away from the table. I need air. Lisa said, Sit down. He looked at her. I said I need air. She held his gaze. And I said sit down. He did. That was new. Very new. Major Keene stepped back into the hall, giving us room again. Sergeant Price remained where she could see the packet. Carol cut the cake. Her hands shook enough that the first slice leaned. She put it on my plate anyway. I took a bite. Lemon, sharp, clean. Brian watched the cake like it had insulted him. Aunt Diane finally spoke. Marion, why didn't you tell us? I looked at her. Which part? All of it. I considered that. Because shame travels faster than facts. She nodded slowly. Brian muttered, That's convenient. I turned to him. You wanted me lonely. Lonely people are easier to describe. He said nothing. I took another bite of cake. Price's phone buzzed in the hall. She looked at it, then at Major Keene. He read the screen and came back to the doorway. Mrs. Whitaker, he said, there is one more consequence you need to know tonight. Brian's eyes lifted. Major Keene said, The refinance verification has been suspended. Brian gripped the edge of the table. Lisa whispered, Already? Yes. Brian looked at me. You called them? No. Major Keene said, The lender requested federal benefit verification. The system response changed when the cancellation posted. Brian's mouth worked. They can't suspend based on that. They can request clarification, Keene said. They did. Brian turned to Lisa. We can fix it. She did not answer him. He looked at Tyler. His son looked down. That was the first bill Brian could not move to my name. I folded Thomas's note and placed it back in my purse. Then I rested my hand on the sealed packet. Major Keene's eyes followed the motion. Would you like us to secure that tonight? No. Brian looked hopeful for half a second. I added, I'll bring it myself. The hope died. Price nodded. Tomorrow morning? Yes. Brian said, Mom, don't go alone. I looked at him. I won't be alone. Carol said, I'll drive. Lisa said, so will I. They looked at each other, not friends yet, not enemies either. I shook my head. Carol can drive. Lisa has her own house to count. Lisa's face changed. She understood. Brian did too. The cake sat between us. The 7 had melted into the frosting. The 9 leaned sideways. Ruth began clearing plates. This time, nobody stopped her. Major Keene stepped fully into the room again. Mrs. Whitaker, Sergeant Price and I will wait outside until you're ready to leave. Brian said, Why? Keene looked at him. Because she asked us to stay nearby. No one improved that sentence by adding to it. The officers left the doorway. I picked up my fork and finished the cake. Brian stared at me. How can you eat? It's my birthday. His face tightened. For a moment, I thought he might say something human, something small enough to be true. He did not. He said, You've made your point. I put the fork down. No, the point was made before you stood up. He looked away. The room settled into a tired silence. This one was different, not comfortable, not peaceful, but cleaner. Tyler came around the table and stood beside me. Grandma? Yes. Can I see Grandpa's note sometime? Brian said, Tyler. I raised one hand. Not tonight, I said. Someday. Tyler nodded. Okay. He looked toward the hall. Were you really a colonel? The room held still again. Brian's eyes closed. I touched the sealed packet. That is what the records say. Tyler frowned. Why didn't you say? I looked at my grandson. Because rank is not a table knife. You don't bring it out for every meal. He thought about that. Then he nodded, as if it made perfect sense. Children can understand dignity faster than adults who profit from its absence. Brian stood again, slower this time. I'm going home. Lisa said, No, you're going outside. He looked at her. What? I'm taking Tyler home. You can call your lender from the parking lot. Lisa. No. Her no sounded like mine by then. Not copied, learned. Brian looked around the table. No one rescued him. Aunt Diane stared at her hands. Mark checked his phone, then put it away. Carol sat beside me, straight-backed and pale. I reached into my purse and found enough cash for Ruth's corrected bill and a proper tip. Brian saw the money. Mom, don't. I counted the bills once. I invited no one, but I'll pay my share. Carol said, I've got yours. I know. I placed the cash under my water glass. I still pay my share. Brian laughed weakly. Always the count. Yes, I said. This time, no one mocked it. Ruth brought the little black folder with the corrected bill. She placed it beside my glass and looked at me, not Brian. I fixed the service line, she said. I saw. And I removed the private room fee. No. Brian made a sound. Mom. I did not look at him. Put it back. Ruth hesitated. Mrs. Whitaker, after tonight, Mr. Miller said we could... Mr. Miller runs a business. Yes, ma'am. So do I. Ruth blinked. You do? I run my own life. She nodded once and took the folder back. I'll correct it again. Carol touched my sleeve. Marion, let somebody do one thing. I did. Tyler sang. Tyler looked down at his plate. He was trying not to smile. That helped me more than the song. Brian reached for the folder when Ruth returned. I covered it with 2 fingers. No. I'm just checking it. I already checked it. I'm trying to help. You're trying to hold paper. His hand stopped. That was the new rule. He heard it before I did. No paper, not from my purse, not from the table, not from the office. Brian had held paper for years and called it service. I opened the folder. Dinner, cake, coffee, room fee, tax, one gratuity. I counted cash slowly, not to shame him, to remind myself. I keep the count, I said. No one laughed. Brian looked toward the hall. Are the officers still there? Yes, Lisa said. He looked at her sharply. You enjoying that? No. You sound like you are. I sound awake. That word hurt him. Awake. He had lived off people staying tired. Ruth took the payment and paused. Do you want boxes? Aunt Diane answered first. Yes, please. Carol said, for all of it. Brian said, we're not carrying leftovers through South Main like a parade. I looked at Ruth. Boxes, please. She left. Mark finally leaned forward. He had been quiet too long. Brian, did you tell the bank Marion lived with you? Brian stared at him. What? The bank. Your office refinance. Why are you asking me that? Because Keene said caregiver paperwork. Lisa's face tightened. You told them she lived with us? Brian pushed his chair back again. This time, he did not stand. I used household support language. That means yes, Lisa said. No, it means there are forms. I said, where did you put my bedroom? He looked at me. In your house, I said. On the form. Where did I sleep? Mom, stop. Guest room? Den? Basement? Lisa whispered, Brian. He rubbed his forehead. It was a standard affidavit. Signed by who? Mark asked. Brian looked at him with real hatred. You don't know anything about lending. I know where my aunt sleeps. Aunt Diane wiped her mouth with her napkin. She sleeps on Sandusky Avenue. She always has, Carol said. Brian turned on her. You stayed away for months. Carol took it. Yes. And now you're an expert? No, Carol said. Now I'm ashamed. That landed harder than anger. Brian had prepared for anger. Shame was quieter. Lisa took her phone from her purse. I want to see the affidavit. You can't. I'm your wife. It's office material. It has my home on it. Brian lowered his voice. Not here. Here. Tyler looked between them. Mom? She touched his shoulder. It's all right. It was not all right, but it was becoming honest. Major Keene appeared at the doorway. Mrs. Whitaker? Yes. There is press outside. Brian's head snapped up. Press? Keene looked at him once. Local only. Someone was waiting at the armory. They followed our vehicle after we left. I closed my eyes for 1 second. Carol said, Oh, Marion. Brian stood. Absolutely not. Major Keene did not move. We advised them there would be no statement without Mrs. Whitaker's consent. They can't film my family, Brian said. They're on the sidewalk. This is harassment. No, Keene said. This is a sidewalk. Price stepped in beside him. She had the same folder tucked under one arm. Mrs. Whitaker, we can exit through the kitchen. Brian said, Good, do that. I looked at him. Why? Because this is private. It stopped being private when you stood up. He went still. I did not want cameras. I did not want my name on anyone's phone. I had spent most of my adult life putting duty before attention. Attention is loud. Duty is not. Still, hiding would give Brian one more thing to use. She was confused, he could say. She was escorted out, he could say. She couldn't face people, he could say. I had heard enough future lies to recognize their shoes at the door. I stood carefully. Carol stood with me. Tyler did too. Brian said, Mom, don't do this. I'm leaving a restaurant. That's not what this is. No, that's what it will be. Price came to my side but did not touch my elbow. I appreciated that. Old women get grabbed in the name of help. Soldiers learn to ask. "Do you want assistance?" she asked. "No." "Yes, ma'am." I picked up my purse. Then I took the sealed packet and held it flat against my chest for a moment before putting it back inside. Brian watched the movement. "That packet isn't safe in your house." "My house has locks. You forget things." "I forgot nothing tonight." Lisa spoke without looking at him. "Give me your keys." Brian turned. "What?" "The keys to your office." "Lisa, I want the file cabinet open when I get home." This is insane. So was finding out in front of our son. "You're overreacting." "No," she said. "I'm reacting late." Tyler moved closer to her. That was its own testimony. Ruth returned with boxes stacked in a brown paper bag. I put the cake separate. "Thank you," I said. She handed it to Carol, then glanced toward the hall. "Mr. Miller is by the front door. He told the camera crew to stay outside." "Thank him." Brian gave a bitter laugh. "Wonderful. Now the whole town gets a show." I looked at him. "Bellefontaine is smaller than your story." No one answered that. We moved toward the hall. Major Keene went first. Price followed beside me. Carol stayed on my other side. Lisa and Tyler came behind us. Brian trailed last, which he hated. I could feel it without turning around. The main dining room had gone quiet. Not quiet. Silent. Forks paused. Glasses stayed lifted. A man in a Bellefontaine chieftain sweatshirt stood near the hostess stand with his cap in both hands. I did not know him. He knew enough. Mr. Miller stood by the register. He was a square man with tired eyes and a dish towel over one shoulder. "Mrs. Whitaker," he said, "you're welcome out the side door." "Front is fine." He nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Brian muttered, "Everybody loves ma'am tonight." Price heard him. "It's a form of address." He said nothing. At the front windows, I saw two people outside near the curb. One had a camera on his shoulder. The other held a phone and a small microphone. WHIO, maybe. Maybe the Bellefontaine Examiner. I did not care to learn. Major Keene opened the door. Cold air came in from South Main Street. It smelled like rain on pavement and fryer oil from somewhere down the block. The sidewalk shone under the streetlights. Cars rolled past slowly because people slow down when they sense trouble. The woman with the microphone stepped forward. "Mrs. Whitaker, can we ask about the mist ceremony?" Major Keene raised one hand. "No questions." Brian stepped around me. "This is a family matter." The camera turned toward him. Of course it did. He straightened. Habit took over. Real estate smile, soft eyes, voice lowered for trust. "My mother's had a difficult evening," he said. "We're handling it privately." Lisa said, "Brian." He ignored her. "There's been confusion over old military records. We ask for privacy while we support her." Support. There it was again. A prettier cousin to Burden. I stood still. My hands were dry. My knees were steady enough. The reporter looked past him. "Mrs. Whitaker, is that correct?" Brian turned toward me. His face pleaded now. Not with love. With need. "Mom," he said softly. "Please." I had spent years mistaking that tone for sorrow. It was only panic wearing better clothes. Major Keene looked at me. "Your choice." I could have said nothing. Silence is sometimes discipline. It can also be surrender when the lie is already moving. I stepped half a pace forward. "I am not confused," I said. The reporter lowered the microphone a little, surprised by the plainness of it. Brian whispered, "Don't." I looked at the camera, then at the reporter. "The ceremony was missed. That will be handled by the proper office." Were you aware of it? No. Who was your contact? Major Keene said, "That's enough." But Brian had already stepped into it. "These are private administrative issues." Lisa said, "You were the contact." The microphone swung toward her. Brian's mouth opened. Nothing useful came out. The reporter asked, "Ma'am, are you family?" Lisa lifted her chin. "His wife." "Did you know?" "No." Tyler stood beside her, pale and angry. He looked younger in the streetlight. He also looked like he would remember every word. Brian said, "Lisa, stop talking." She did not look at him. "I should have started sooner." The camera caught that. I wished it had not, but wishes do not edit evenings. Major Keene stepped between the reporter and Tyler. "No minors." The cameraman lowered his lens at once. "Good." Price turned to me. "Vehicle is at the curb." Carol pressed the boxed cake into my hands. "I'll get the car." "I can walk." "I know, I still have to get the car." "That was fair." Brian moved close to me as Carol hurried toward the side lot. Price shifted 1 inch. "Not much. Enough." "Mom," Brian said, "give me one night." "For what?" "To fix this. You had years." "I'm your son." "Yes. That means something." It did. That's why it lasted this long. He looked like I had slapped him. I had not. Plain facts can bruise when someone has used fog as a cushion. He lowered his voice. "If that review goes forward, I lose everything. You may lose what wasn't built. My name is on that office. My name was on your forms." He breathed hard through his nose. "You don't understand exposure. I understand reports. This town will talk. It already did. That's different." "Yes," I said. "Now it has documents." Lisa came closer. "Brian, where is the first notice?" He turned toward her. "Not now." "Where is it?" "I don't know." "Did you throw it away?" "No." "Did you open it?" He looked toward the reporter, then back at her. "It came to the office." Price's eyes sharpened. Major Keene did not speak. I said, "Why?" Brian's jaw worked. "Because I was your contact." "For benefits," I said. "Not my mail." "It was all connected." "No. You connected it." He rubbed both hands over his face. For 1 second, he looked like the boy who had lost his first bicycle on Columbus Avenue and blamed the lock. Then he looked like Brian again. "I was going to tell you," he said. "When?" "After the refinance." Lisa laughed once. It had no humor in it. "There it is." Brian turned on her. "That office pays our bills." "No," she said. Apparently Marion did. A car passed slowly. Someone inside watched too long. Brian saw them. His face changed again. Reputation is a public animal. It eats from every hand that feeds it. Major Keene said, "Mr. Whitaker, you should stop making statements here." Brian looked at him. "Are you advising me?" "I'm observing you." That was worse. Carol pulled up in her sedan. She had parked crooked, half a tire over the line. Carol hated crooked parking. Tonight she left it. Price opened the rear door for me. Brian reached for my purse strap. "At least let me hold that." I stepped back. So did everyone else. His hand hung in the air. The camera had not been pointed at him. The reporter had turned away. Still, he knew what he had done. Tyler said, "Dad." One word, small, heavy. Brian lowered his hand. "I didn't mean," he said. I said, "You did." Price's voice stayed calm. "Mrs. Whitaker, please enter the vehicle." I got in. The seat was cold. The cake box rested on my lap. My purse stayed between my feet, tucked under the edge of my coat. Carol slid behind the wheel and locked the doors. The click sounded louder than it was. Through the window, I watched Lisa speak to Brian. I could not hear every word. I saw her hold out her hand. He stared at it. Then he reached into his pocket and gave her keys. Not all of them. I knew men like Brian. He would keep one. Lisa knew it too. All, she said. He hesitated. Tyler looked at him. Brian reached into his other pocket and gave her a second ring. She did not thank him. Major Keene came to my window. I lowered it. Mrs. Whitaker, he said, we'll meet you at the Logan County Veterans Service Office at 0900. 9 is fine. His mouth almost smiled. 9 then. Will there be more cameras? Not inside. Good. Price leaned slightly into view. Bring the packet, the note, and any bank records you want copied. I will. Brian had moved closer again. Mom, I should be there. No. I'm listed on forms. That is why you won't be. Keene, he said, tell her she needs representation. Major Keene looked at him. She has agency. Brian scoffed. She's 79. I looked through the open window. 79 is not a diagnosis. The reporter heard that one. I saw her write it down. Brian did too, his mouth shut. Carol pulled away from Miller's table slowly. South Main stretched ahead, wet and black under the lamps. We passed the courthouse square, the closed storefronts, the bank Brian had once bragged about entering through the side door because he knew the manager. Carol drove with both hands on the wheel. After 2 blocks, she said, Are you hurt? No. I mean inside. Yes. She nodded. Me too. We stopped at a red light, though there were no cars coming. Carol always obeyed lights at night. Thomas used to say that told you everything about her. The cake box slid on my lap. I steadied it. Carol said, I should have seen it. You saw what he showed. I heard what he said about you. People believe confident lies. I did. So did I for a while. She glanced at me. You? Yes. The light changed. She drove on. I thought help had become complicated, I said. That's what I called it. Carol swallowed. What was it? Taking. She wiped one cheek with the back of her hand. I'm sorry. That's enough. No, it isn't. It is for tonight. She accepted that. Carol could accept an order when it was kind. We turned toward Sandusky Avenue. My house came into view with the porch light on. I had left it that way before dinner. A habit. Thomas and I had done that for 42 years. One light for return, one locked door for sense. Carol parked in the driveway. Do you want me to come in? Yes. She looked surprised. I need you to witness something. She got out quickly and came around to my side. I carried the cake. She carried the leftovers. Neither of us spoke until we were inside. The house smelled faintly of lemon oil and old wood. I had dusted that morning because birthdays make people visit, even when you do not invite many. I set the cake on the kitchen table. Then I took the button tin from the sideboard drawer. Carol stared at it. That's Thomas's? Yes. The tin was round, blue, scratched along the rim. It had held buttons first, then cufflinks, then small things Thomas refused to lose. I opened it. The soft rattle filled the kitchen. Carol stepped closer. Inside were 2 brass buttons, one old tie clasp, a folded receipt from a tailor in Dayton, and the space where the note had been. Under the felt bottom sat the thing I had not shown at dinner. Carol saw my fingers slip beneath the felt. There's more? Yes. I lifted out a second folded paper. Not the cancellation. That had already been signed and transmitted. This was older, yellowed at the folds. Thomas's block printing sat across the top. Do not give Brian the house to solve a temporary problem. Carol covered her mouth. I handed it to her. Read the date. She looked. March 8, 2018. 2 weeks after Brian asked us to co-sign the office expansion. Carol looked at me. Thomas said no? Thomas said no. I said maybe. Did Brian know? No. She read the line again. He saw this coming. He saw numbers. And you kept the house. Yes. Because of this? Because of him. And because I knew better. I took the paper back and placed it beside the tin. Carol sat down without asking. Marion, does Brian have any claim? No. You're sure? Yes. How sure? I went to the hallway cabinet and took out the red folder, my house folder. Deed, insurance, taxes, repair receipts, furnace warranty, survey from 1999. Thomas had labeled every tab by hand. I set it on the table. Carol stared. You had all this ready? I live alone, Carol. Ready is cheaper than panic. She nodded slowly. I opened the folder to the deed. My name, Marion Whitaker. Thomas's release recorded after he passed. No Brian. Carol let out a breath. Good. Tomorrow I want a copy made. I'll do it. No, I'll do it. You'll drive. She gave a small smile. Yes, ma'am. The phone rang. Both of us looked at it. My landline almost never rang after 9. People call cell phones when they want a person. They call landlines when they want a house. Carol said, Don't answer. I answered. Marion. It was Lisa. Yes. Her voice shook, but she held it together. I found the notice. Carol sat straighter. Where? I asked. In Brian's office, bottom drawer. It was opened. I closed my eyes. Lisa kept going. There's a copy of your signature, too. It doesn't look right. Carol whispered, What? I raised one finger. Lisa said, I'm not accusing. I'm saying it doesn't look right. Take a photograph. I did. Put the paper back. I don't want to. Put it back, Lisa. Why? So tomorrow it is found where he kept it. She was quiet. Then she understood. All right. Is Tyler with you? Yes, he's in the car. I didn't take him inside. Good. Brian's calling me. Do not answer while driving. I'm parked. Then answer once. Say nothing about the paper. Lisa breathed into the phone. He'll know. He already knows enough to be afraid. That was plain. It was also true. Lisa said, Marion? Yes. I'm sorry I stood behind him. You stood behind your husband. I stood in front of the wrong thing. I looked at Thomas's tin. Tomorrow, stand beside the truth. She cried then, but only once. A short sound. She swallowed it. I will, she said. After we hung up, Carol stared at me. A signature? Maybe. Marion. Maybe, I repeated. We use the right word until paper proves a stronger one. She nodded. You're calmer than I am. No, I'm older. I put the deed back in the folder. Then I placed Thomas's second note inside with it, in a clear sleeve. Carol watched me. Did you know that was under the felt? Yes. For how long? Since yesterday morning? You didn't say? No. Why? Because Brian was still talking. She looked at the tin again. And now? Now paper talks. The phone rang again. My cell this time. Brian, I let it ring. Carol looked at the screen. He'll keep calling. Then the phone will keep ringing. It stopped, then started again. I turned it face down. Carol said, Do you want me to stay? No. You sure? I have locks. I know. And a cake. She almost laughed. That's not a defense. It's something to do. She stood slowly. I'll be here at 8:15. 8:30. Marion. The office is 5 minutes away. You move slower in the morning. I move at the speed I choose. She lifted both hands. 8:30. At the door, she turned back. Are you scared? Yes. She waited. I said, Fear changes shape at my age. It stops asking what might happen. It asks what I can still do. Carol nodded. And what can you do? I touched the red folder. Keep the count. After she left, I locked the door and checked it twice. Then I went through the house, room by room, kitchen window, locked, back door, locked, side door to the little porch, locked. Thomas's closet stayed closed. I did not need to open it. The work there had already been done. In the bedroom, I took off my birthday blouse and hung it back up. There was frosting on one cuff. I left it. Some stains are records, too. My cell phone showed 7 missed calls, 4 from Brian, 2 from a number I did not know, 1 from Lisa. Then a text from Brian appeared. "Please don't ruin me." I read it once. I did not answer. A second text came. "You're my mother." I set the phone on the dresser. That was the old hook, the one he had used when the rent was late, when the tax letter came, when Thomas was tired, when I had enough but gave one more check anyway. Mother. A good word, not a blank check. I went back to the kitchen and cut a thin slice of lemon cake. I put it on a saucer, poured 1 cup of decaf, and sat at the table with Thomas's button tin beside me. The house was quiet, not empty, quiet. There is a difference. Empty asks to be filled. Quiet lets you hear what you already know. I opened the tin and touched the 2 brass buttons. Thomas had polished them even after the uniform no longer fit. He said a thing earned should not be left dull. The landline rang again. I let it. Then the porch boards creaked. I looked toward the front door. 1 step, then another. Not heavy, not careful enough either. I stood and reached for the hallway light. The porch flashed bright through the lace curtain. Brian stood outside with his coat open and his phone in his hand. He saw me through the glass. "Mom," he called. "Open the door." I did not move. He tried the knob. It held. His face changed when it did. Not much. Enough. "Mom, come on." I walked to the door but kept it closed. "Go home. I need to talk. Tomorrow. No, tonight." "Go home, Brian." He looked past me into the house. "Is Carol there?" "No." "Then open the door." "No." He laughed once, sharp and tired. "So now I'm dangerous?" "You're unwelcome." That word stopped him. He lowered his voice. "I'm still your son." "Yes." "You'd lock your son out?" "I just did." His hand pressed flat against the glass. "I can fix the office if you give me time. I'm done funding time. I never asked you like that. You never named it right." He looked toward the street, then back at me. "The lender called. They want documentation by noon tomorrow." There it was, a new clock, not one invented by delay, one Brian had already built and now feared. "What documentation?" "Proof of continuing support." "You don't have it." "I need you to confirm the arrangement was voluntary." "It was canceled." "Say it was voluntary before tonight." I watched him through the glass. He was wet from the light rain. His hair clung at the temples. He looked older than he had at dinner. Not wiser, just used up. "It began as help," I said. "It became something else." "They'll destroy me over wording." "No, they'll read the wording you used." He stepped closer. "If you don't help me, I may lose the house." I felt the old pull. Not his office now. His house. Lisa's kitchen. Tyler's bedroom. A place where my grandson kept school shoes by the back door. That was how Brian survived. He put someone innocent behind every demand. "Is Lisa on the mortgage?" I asked. He blinked. "What? Is Lisa on the mortgage?" "Yes." "Then she should call her own lawyer." His face hardened. "You'd send my wife to a lawyer?" "I'd send her to fax." He leaned nearer to the glass. "You're enjoying this." "No." "You are." "No. You've been waiting to punish me." I said nothing. He hit the door once with the side of his fist. Not hard enough to break anything, hard enough to tell me he wanted sound. I did not step back. From the dark porch steps, a voice said, "Mr. Whitaker." Brian turned. Major Keene stood at the bottom of my walk in a dark coat. Sergeant Price stood beside him. Their vehicle was parked at the curb with its lights off. Brian looked stunned. "What the hell is this?" Keene's voice stayed level. "Mrs. Whitaker asked us to remain nearby until she was home." "I didn't see you." "No." Price looked at me through the glass. "Mrs. Whitaker, are you all right?" "Yes." Brian backed away from the door. "This is absurd." Keene stepped onto the first porch step. "It's time to leave." Brian pointed at him. "You have no authority here." "Correct," Keene said. "So I'm asking plainly." "And if I don't?" Price lifted her phone. "Then Mrs. Whitaker can make a call." Brian looked at me. I held his eyes through the door. He wanted me to soften it, to wave them off, to prove that even now I would protect him from the sound of his own conduct. I did not. He lowered his hand. "This isn't over," he said. "No," I said. "It's finally in order." Brian walked down the steps and past the officers. Keene did not touch him. Price watched until he got in his car. The engine turned over hard. He pulled away too fast for a residential street. Major Keene waited until the taillights turned at the corner. Then he came back to the door. "Mrs. Whitaker?" I opened it 2 inches. The chain stayed on. "Yes. We'll remain on the block for a few minutes." "That isn't necessary." "Probably not." I looked at him. "But you'll do it anyway." "Yes, ma'am." Price held up a small card. "This is the direct office number for morning. If anyone calls claiming to be from benefits tonight, don't answer questions." I opened the door enough to take it. "Thank you." Price glanced at the table behind me. She saw the cake, the tin, the red folder. She did not ask. "Try to rest," she said. "I rarely take orders after 9. Her mouth twitched. "Then consider it a suggestion." I closed and locked the door. This time, when I checked the lock, my hand did not shake. I returned to the kitchen and sat down. The cake was still there. The coffee had gone cool. Thomas's buttons rested in the tin like 2 small coins from a country I still understood. My cell phone lit again. This time, it was Tyler. I answered. "Grandma?" "Yes." His voice was low. "Are you okay?" "Yes." "Dad came there, didn't he?" I looked toward the front door. Briefly. "I told Mom he might." "You were right." "I'm sorry." "Don't carry that." He was quiet. Then he said, "Grandma?" "Yes." "When they asked for the Colonel, did you know they meant you?" I looked at the sealed packet in my purse. It waited by the chair, square and patient. "Yes," I said. "I knew." "Why didn't you stand up right away?" "Because I wanted to see who else would." He breathed out slowly. "I didn't." "You stood when I came back." "That was different." "No," I said. It was the first true thing at that table. He did not answer for a moment. Then he said, "Mom says we're going with you tomorrow." "She is. You have school." "I don't want to go." "That is not how school works." "It's summer." I almost smiled. "Then you have breakfast." "I want to be there." I understood. A boy had watched his father shrink in public. He needed to see something solid in daylight. "Ask your mother," I said. "She said ask you." "Then yes, but you listen. You don't speak unless asked." "I can do that." I thought of Brian at 15. He could not do that, not even then. "I believe you," I said. Tyler's voice softened. "Were you really in charge of soldiers?" "Yes." "How many?" "That depended on the year." "What's the most?" I looked at Thomas's tin. Enough that I learned not to waste words. He accepted that. "Okay. Good night, Tyler." "Good night, Grandma." After I hung up, the house settled again. I finished the cold coffee. I washed the saucer. I put the cake in the refrigerator because aunts do not care about family reckoning. Then I placed the red folder, Thomas's note, Price's card, and the sealed packet into my old leather document case. The case had a cracked handle. Thomas had offered to replace it 3 times. I had refused 3 times. It still latched. That was enough. Before bed, I stood at the front window. Down the block, a dark vehicle sat under the maple tree. No headlights, no movement. I could not see Major Keene or Sergeant Price. I knew they were there. That was the difference between watching and guarding. In the morning, Bellefontaine would do what small towns do. It would talk at counters and gas pumps. It would decide what it knew before it knew enough. Brian would make calls. Lisa would find more paper. Tyler would ask questions a boy should not need to ask. And I would go to the Veteran Service Office with my own records in my own hand. Not to be rescued, to be counted. I did not sleep much that night. At 5:30, I gave up pretending. I dressed before the sun cleared the roofline across Sandusky Avenue. Gray slacks, white blouse, navy cardigan, low shoes, nothing ceremonial, nothing soft enough to mistake for surrender. The document case sat on the kitchen chair. I made coffee and toast. I ate because I have learned that a body can betray a good plan if you treat it poorly. Then I wiped the counter, folded the dish towel, and checked the case again. Red folder. Thomas's note, Price's card, sealed packet, copy of the cancellation confirmation. At 7:16, Lisa called. "Are you awake?" "Yes." "I didn't sleep." "That happens." "Brian left before 6. "Where?" "I don't know. He took his laptop." "Did he take papers?" "I checked. The drawer notice is still there." "Good. Tyler's dressed. Then feed him. He says he can't eat. Toast. He hates toast. He can hate it with butter." Lisa was quiet for a second. Then she said, "You sound like yourself." "I am myself." "No, I mean after last night." "Last night changed paper. It did not change me." She breathed out. "I'll pick you up at 8:30. Carol is driving." "She told me. We'll follow." "Bring the notice." "I thought you said leave it." "I did. Now bring it." "In the same envelope?" "Yes." "What if Brian asks?" "Tell him the truth after we're already there." "That won't go well." "No." "Marion?" "Yes." "Do you think I should call a lawyer before we walk in?" "If you have one, yes." "I don't." "Then ask the office for a referral list. Don't ask them for legal advice." "I know." "You know more this morning than yesterday." That stopped her. Not because it was kind, because it was accurate. "I'll see you soon," she said. After we hung up, I stood at the kitchen window. A school bus rolled past 2 blocks away, though it was summer route service, mostly empty, mostly habit. Bellefontaine starts early. Contractors, courthouse clerks, bakers, retired men walking before humidity finds them. A town can look innocent while it carries every private mistake down Main Street. At 8:25, Carol pulled to the curb. She was early and pretending not to be. I locked the front door and carried the document case down the walk. She got out fast. "I can take that." "No." "I figured." She looked at my face. "You ready?" "I was ready yesterday. Today I'm scheduled." Carol opened the passenger door. "That's worse somehow." "It's cleaner." We drove toward South Main in silence until we passed Miller's table. The sign was dark. The backroom windows faced the alley. Someone had already stacked empty bread trays near the side door. Carol slowed without meaning to. "Don't," I said. She pressed the gas again. "Sorry." That room did its work. At the Logan County Veteran Service Office, Lisa's car was already in the lot. Tyler stood beside it with his hands in his pockets. He wore a clean shirt and looked too serious for a boy standing in morning sun. Lisa held a manila envelope against her chest. When Tyler saw me, he straightened. I did not tell him to relax. People say that when they want discomfort to disappear without earning it. Good morning, I said. Morning, Grandma. Did you eat? A little. Lisa said, half the toast. That counts. Carol came around the car. Any sign of Brian? Lisa shook her head. No. Then a black sedan turned in from the street. We all watched it. It was not Brian. Major Keene parked 2 spaces over. Sergeant Price stepped out with a file bag and a travel mug. They were not in dress uniform that morning. Business clothes, still unmistakable. Some people carry rank without cloth. Keene nodded to me. Mrs. Whitaker, Major. Price looked at Tyler. Morning. He said, Morning, Sergeant. She noticed the effort he put into getting it right. That's close enough for this office. The front door opened before we reached it. A woman with silver glasses and a lanyard held it with her hip. Mrs. Whitaker? Yes. I'm Denise Harrow. Come in. Her eyes moved to Lisa, Tyler, Carol, then the officers. She did not ask why so many people had arrived with one elderly woman and one document case. Good office people know when the room has already answered. Inside, the waiting area smelled of paper, coffee, and floor cleaner. There were framed photographs on the wall, county service members, old unit photos, a faded print from Camp Perry. A rack of pamphlets sat by the window. Denise led us past the counter into a conference room. Not large. Table, 6 chairs, 1 extra folding chair against the wall. A flag in the corner. A copier humming behind a half-open door. I placed the document case on the table. Keene sat across from me. Price took the chair near the door. Lisa sat beside me. Tyler stood until I looked at the empty chair. Sit. He sat. Denise remained standing with a notepad. Mrs. Whitaker, I've reviewed the basic file. Before we make copies, I need to confirm what you're asking us to document. Dates, signatures, source of deposits, source of claims. Claims by whom? Brian Whitaker. Lisa flinched at his name. She did not look away. Denise wrote it down. Your son. Yes. Keene opened his file. We also need to preserve the distinction between family support and military benefits paperwork. Good, I said. Words matter. Price gave a short nod. They matter a lot here. Lisa slid the envelope across the table. Her hand shook once. I found this in Brian's office. Denise did not touch it at first. She looked at me. You may open it, I said. She put on reading glasses and drew out the paper. She read the first page, then the second. Her mouth tightened. What is it? Lisa asked. Denise laid it flat. It's a lender condition sheet. Carol leaned forward. For his office? For a refinance tied to business debt, Denise said. It lists projected caregiver income and family support obligations as continuing collateral assurance. Lisa stared at her. Caregiver income? Denise looked at me again. Mrs. Whitaker, did your son provide daily care? No. Medication management? No. Transportation to medical appointments? Sometimes he drove me to dinner. Not medical appointments. Meal preparation? I looked at Lisa. No. Lisa's face went pale. He listed that? Price reached into her file bag and removed a copy. He listed more than that. Keene did not let the moment run wild. Sergeant. Price set the paper down. This came through the inquiry channel after Mrs. Whitaker's cancellation form was processed. The caregiver support notation was connected to a veteran household assistance claim. It had not completed review. Lisa whispered, He used her name. Tyler looked at his mother. Mom, She reached for his hand without looking. Denise turned a page. There's also a statement saying Mrs. Whitaker intended to transfer residence management to him. Carol said, residence management? That's how it's worded. Meaning the house? Denise hesitated. Possibly. I opened the red folder and took out the deed. No transfer exists. Denise read it. Your name only. Yes. And Thomas Whitaker's release was recorded. Yes. She looked at the tabs. You brought everything. I don't like searching when other people are waiting. Keen's eyes flicked toward the folder. That's a command habit. It's a household habit, too. Price slid another page toward Denise. We need to compare the signature on that intent statement. Lisa sat back. That's the one. That's what looked wrong. Denise placed both pages beside the cancellation form. Mrs. Whitaker, may I see your current signature? I took a pen. I signed on a blank sheet. Marion Whitaker. Not hurried, not decorative. Mine. Denise compared the papers. She did not say fraud. She did not need to. This one is inconsistent, she said. Lisa covered her mouth. Tyler stared at the table. Carol said, inconsistent is a polite word. It's the word we can use before review, Denise said. I liked her for that. Keen closed his folder with one hand. Mrs. Whitaker, I need to tell you what happens next. Tell me. Your cancellation remains active. Any allotment authorization connected to Brian Whitaker is stopped. Any caregiver support claim tied to him goes under review. The lender cannot rely on the pending benefit notation as verified income. Lisa's voice was small. So the refinance fails. Keen looked at her. I can't speak for the lender. Price said, but the support proof they requested won't exist. There it was, not punishment, arithmetic. Lisa took her hand from Tyler's and pressed both palms flat on the table. He told me your benefits were late. He said he was covering you. No, I said. He said your taxes were behind. They are paid. He said the house needed to be put under his name so Medicaid wouldn't take it. Carol made a sound low in her throat. Oh, Lisa. Denise looked up sharply. Who advised that? Brian. Not an attorney? No. Denise wrote again. Please do not sign anything about the house without counsel. I won't, Lisa said. I was speaking to both of you. I won't, I said. Tyler's chair scraped. He lied about all of it? No one answered fast enough. I turned to him. He arranged facts to serve himself. That's lying. Yes. The word sat in the room, plain, heavy enough. The office phone rang outside the conference room. Denise ignored it. Then footsteps came down the hall. The front desk woman appeared in the doorway. Denise. Yes? Brian Whitaker is here. Lisa shut her eyes. Carol turned toward me. Marion. I put my hand on the document case. Let him wait. The front desk woman looked relieved. He says it's urgent. Then he can be urgent in a chair, Denise said. Price stood. I'll step out. Keen lifted one finger. No, stay here. Price sat again. Denise looked at me. Do you want him included? No. A male voice carried from the lobby. She's my mother. I have a right to know what she's doing. Tyler stood up so fast his chair bumped the wall. Lisa grabbed his wrist. Sit down. He can't talk like that. He can, I said, and we can keep the door closed. Brian's voice rose. Lisa, are you in there? Lisa did not answer. He said her name again, louder. Denise walked to the door and opened it halfway. Her voice changed, not louder, official. Mr. Whitaker, this is a private meeting. I'm her son. That doesn't authorize access. I handle her affairs. No, you don't, I said. My voice carried through the open door. Silence followed. Then Brian appeared in the doorway behind Denise. His face was flushed. He wore the same coat from the night before. No tie. His hair was combed badly, as if he had used water and anger. He saw the papers. He saw Lisa. He saw Keene and Price. His eyes came to me last. "Mom," he said. "Brian." "What are you doing?" "Correcting records." "You don't understand those forms." "I understand my name." He looked at Lisa. "Why are you here?" She held his gaze. "Because I found the notice." His jaw moved once. "You went through my office?" "Our office," she said. He almost answered. Then he remembered the witnesses. Keene stood. "Mr. Whitaker, this meeting concerns Mrs. Whitaker's benefits and records." Brian pointed at him. "You again." "Yes. You're turning my family against me." "No," Keene said. "Paper is doing that." Brian laughed. It was not humor. It was a cracked sound. "Paper! That's all anyone cares about." I looked at him. "Paper is what you used." He stepped into the room. Denise did not move aside. That mattered. "Mom, we can fix this privately." We tried privately. "No, you listened to Carol and strangers." Carol said, "Don't put me in your arithmetic." Brian ignored her. "Lisa, take Tyler outside." Tyler said, "No. Don't start." I said no. Brian turned on him. "You don't know what's happening." "I know enough. You're a child." Tyler's face tightened. "Then stop making me watch." That reached him. For 1 second it did. Then fear took it back. Brian looked at Denise. "I need those originals." Denise held the file against her chest. "These are not yours?" She's confused. I felt Lisa stiffen beside me. Brian went on. "She's old. She gets overwhelmed. Last night was emotional." Price's chair moved back 1 inch. Keene's expression did not change. I said, "I am not confused." Brian lowered his voice. "Mom, please." There was that word again. Mother had failed, so he tried please. "I can lose everything," he said. "You may." "My office. Yes. My house. Maybe. My reputation." I looked at him for a long moment. That one already left before the rest. His face changed. Red, then flat. "You'd say that in front of my son?" "You brought him into the lie. Don't blame me for the room." Lisa whispered, "Brian, stop." He turned on her. "You don't even understand what I was trying to do." "I understand what you signed." "I kept us afloat. With her name. With family money. With her name," Lisa repeated. Denise stepped between Brian and the table. "Mr. Whitaker, you need to return to the lobby." "I'm not leaving." Keene's voice came quiet. "You are." Brian stared at him. "You love this, don't you? Coming in with your little folder?" "No." "You get to be the hero." "No." "You don't know what it's like to keep a business alive here." Keene looked at me, then back at Brian. "I know what it looks like when someone calls service a burden and spends the proceeds." The room went still, not quiet, still. Brian swallowed. "I didn't say that here." "No," I said. "You said it at my birthday dinner." He looked at Tyler. He had forgotten the boy heard it. Tyler did not look down. Denise closed the folder. "We're done for now." "No," Brian said. "We're not." The front desk phone rang again. Denise looked toward the lobby. Brian's cell rang at the same time. He checked the screen and froze. Lisa saw it too. "Who is it?" He declined the call. It rang again. Keene glanced at the phone. "You may want to answer." Brian looked at him. "Why?" "Because if that is your lender, they may already have the update." Brian stared at the screen. The third ring sounded smaller than his breathing. He answered. "Brian Whitaker." He listened. His eyes went to me, then to the papers. No, that's not accurate. He listened again. I can explain the support documentation. More listening. No, don't pull the file. We're sitting with the office now. Lisa closed her eyes. Brian's voice dropped. By noon? That's impossible. He turned away, but the room was too small to hide in. I need 48 hours. The answer came through faint and tinny, not words enough to quote, tone enough to understand. Brian's shoulders lowered. I understand, he said. He ended the call and stood with the phone at his side. Nobody asked. He told us anyway. They suspended the refinance. Lisa's hand went to the table edge. Tyler whispered, Dad. Brian looked at him, and for once he had no sentence ready. Denise said, Mr. Whitaker, wait in the lobby. This time he went. He did not slam the door. That was almost worse. He walked out like a man trying to look orderly while every number changed in his head. For several seconds, we sat with the sound of the copier humming. Then Denise exhaled. Mrs. Whitaker, we'll copy the deed and the cancellation confirmation. We'll also scan the notice Lisa brought and log where it was found. We cannot determine intent today. I know. We can preserve records. That is enough for this morning. Price opened the sealed packet from her bag, not mine. There is one more thing. Keene looked at her. Sergeant. She held his gaze. It's already scheduled for delivery. He nodded once. I watched them both. Price set a single sheet on the table. The delayed commendation file was closed last month. The corrected invitation went to the address on record. My address? No, she said. Lisa turned toward her. Whose? Price looked at Brian's empty chair near the doorway. Brian Whitaker's office address. Carol said, he got that too. Price's mouth tightened. It appears so. I did not move. Keene said, Mrs. Whitaker, the dinner appearance was planned because the ceremony notice was not acknowledged. We were asked to deliver the packet directly. By whom? The records section at state headquarters. After Sergeant Price found the returned contact history. I looked at Price. You found it. Yes, ma'am. Why did you keep looking? She answered plainly. Because your service record did not match the way your family file described you. Lisa looked down. Tyler looked at me as if something had shifted again. What did it say? He asked. Price hesitated. Tell him, I said. She picked up the page. It described Mrs. Whitaker as a dependent widow with limited independent capacity. Carol's chair creaked. Oh, Brian. Lisa's face folded, but she did not cry. Not then. Tyler looked toward the closed door. He wrote that? Price said it was submitted under his contact packet. Dependent, widow, limited. Words can bruise without raising a hand. I had worn rank. I had run briefings in rooms where men twice my size waited to see if I would ask permission to speak. I had signed casualty messages. I had sent young officers back to their maps when their math got sloppy. I had served at Fort Knox in 1976, Fort McClellan in 1982, West Germany in 1987, and Columbus under the 37th Infantry Brigade Combat Team in 1999. I had retired in 2005 with 31 years active and reserve service behind my name, and my son had made me small on paper, not by accident, by need. I picked up the sheet and read it once. Then I set it down. Make a copy, I said. Lisa turned to me. That's all? For now. How are you so calm? I'm not calm. You look calm. That's training. Price's eyes met mine. She understood that sentence better than anyone else in the room. Denise gathered the pages. I'll scan these now. When she left, the room loosened a little. Not enough to feel comfortable. Enough to breathe. Tyler leaned toward me. Grandma? Yes. Were you really stationed in Germany? Yes. Did Dad know? He knew some. Why didn't he tell me? I don't know. Lisa said, because it didn't fit what he needed. That was the first hard thing she said without apology around it. Keene looked at his watch. Mrs. Whitaker, after the copies are complete, we should leave separately. It would be better if you don't continue this discussion in the parking lot. Brian was still in the lobby. We could hear his voice now and then, lower, pleading into the phone. Carol said, "He'll follow us." "No," I said. "He'll follow the lender." I was right. When Denise returned with the copies, Brian was gone. The front desk woman said he had walked out while on a call. He had not looked back into the conference room. He had not asked for Tyler. Lisa heard that. So did Tyler. Some facts do not need a witness, but they hurt more when they have one. Denise handed me a clean packet. Originals are in your case. Copies are stamped and dated. I included a receipt of documents received. Thank you. There's a referral list for attorneys, elder law, real estate, family matters. Lisa took it. Thank you. Denise looked at me. Mrs. Whitaker, do you want a safety plan noted? No. Keene said, I recommend a contact note at least. I thought about Brian on my porch, his fist against the door. Not hard, not harmless. A contact note, I said. Denise wrote again. No access to records without direct consent. Yes. Phone password? I blinked. What? Set a verbal password. If someone calls claiming to be you or acting for you, staff asks for it. Carol smiled a little. Pick something Brian wouldn't guess. Thomas's note lay inside the case. I said, button tin. Tyler looked at me. Denise wrote it down. Button tin. The words sounded ordinary. That was why they worked. Outside, the morning had turned warmer. Traffic moved along the street. A delivery truck backed into the alley beside a bakery. Someone honked once, not angrily. Just Bellefontaine getting on with itself. Lisa stood beside her car with the attorney list in her hand. I don't know what happens when I go home, she said. You decide what door you open. That sounds easier than it is. It is. Tyler said, Can we go to your house? Lisa looked at me quickly. Just for a while. Carol unlocked her car. I can take Marion. You two follow. No, I said. We're going to the bank first. Lisa stared. The bank? Yes. Now? Now. Carol's eyebrows lifted. Which bank? The one Brian uses for my transfers. Lisa looked tired suddenly. Marion, haven't we done enough this morning? No. Tyler said, What's at the bank? My signature card. Carol opened her door, then closed it again. That matters. Yes. Lisa pressed the attorney list to her side. What are you changing? Access. Did Brian have access? Not to the account, to the habit. She did not understand. Then she did. Every month I had written the check because the old arrangement made it easy. Every month he had called it help for me when he needed help from me. The account did not betray me. The routine did. At the bank on Main, the teller recognized me. Her name was Paula. She had helped Thomas order checks the year before he passed. She looked from my face to the people behind me and chose caution. Mrs. Whitaker, how can I help? I need to stop one recurring draft and add a note. No account information by phone. Paula nodded. I can do that. No third-party pickup of cashier checks. Of course. No account letters without my in-person approval. She glanced at Lisa, then back to me. Yes, ma'am. A manager came over after the second form. He was young enough to think gray hair meant patience. He started explaining online options. I let him finish. Then I said, Paper today? He stopped. Absolutely. Carol coughed into her hand. Lisa stood behind me without speaking. Tyler watched every form. Paula turned the last page toward me. Sign here. I signed. Marion Whitaker. Same hand, same name, different count. When we stepped back onto the sidewalk, Lisa's phone buzzed. She looked at it and went still. Brian. She answered on speaker without asking me. That told me something. Where are you? He said. Downtown. With her? Yes. You need to come home. Not yet. Lisa. No. A pause. Then he said, I'm sorry. The words were too fast. Lisa closed her eyes. For what? For the mess. What mess? You know. No, say it. He breathed hard into the phone. Not like this. Then not now. Lisa, the office line is locked. They froze the draw. I need the folder from the house. What folder? The blue one. She looked at me. I shook my head once. Lisa said, I'm not touching your papers. They're our papers. Then come home and ask me in person. I can't. Why? He did not answer. Price's words returned to me. Review, claims, contact packet. Lisa heard the silence too. Brian, where are you? At the office. Who's there? People. What people? He lowered his voice. The lender sent someone. Tyler's face tightened. Brian said, I need Mom to say I misunderstood. Just misunderstood. That's all. Lisa looked at me. I said nothing. She said, she's done saying things for you. The phone stayed open for one more breath. Then Brian hung up. Lisa lowered the phone. Tyler stared at the sidewalk. He didn't ask if we were okay. No, Lisa said. That was not new, but it was newly heard. Carol touched my elbow. Home? I looked down South Main toward the courthouse square. The town moved around us. Cars, errands, signs, ordinary doors opening and closing. Last night had happened in a private room. This morning had happened in offices where paper could travel. The next room would not be private. Home, I said. But when we reached my porch on Sandusky Avenue, Brian's car was already there. Brian stood on my porch with his hand on the rail. Not pounding, not shouting, waiting. That made Lisa slow the car before she reached the curb. Carol pulled in behind us and left her engine running. Tyler leaned forward between the seats. Is he allowed to be here? He asked. I looked at Brian through the windshield. He's allowed to stand, I said. Lisa's hand stayed on the wheel. I don't want him near you. That is why we don't rush. Brian saw us and came down one step. He had lost the coat. His sleeves were rolled up. His phone was in his hand, and his face had that pale look men get when the first door closes and they start counting all the other doors. Lisa parked. Stay in the car, she told Tyler. No. Tyler. No, Mom. I opened my door before they could argue. Brian took 2 steps toward me. Mom, listen. I held up one hand. He stopped. That surprised him more than a shout would have. You don't come closer, I said. He looked toward the street. People can see us. Yes. Carol got out and stood beside me. Lisa got out next. Tyler came too, slower than he wanted. Brian swallowed. I need 5 minutes. You've had years, I said. 5 honest minutes. That's a new number. He looked at Lisa. Can you please not do this out here? Lisa said, you came here. I didn't know where else to go. The words had some truth in them, not enough. I walked to the porch. Brian moved aside. I climbed the steps and unlocked my front door, but I did not open it all the way. You may stand there, I said. Mom, you may speak from there. He looked past me into the house. His eyes went to the hall table, the coat closet, the little shelf where Thomas used to leave his keys. What are you looking for? I asked. Nothing. Try again. His mouth tightened. The blue folder. Lisa stepped onto the walk. You said it was at home. I thought it was. You thought wrong. Brian rubbed his forehead. It has tax copies, old insurance pages, some of Mom's VA stuff. Veterans papers, I said. Yes, those. Mine. I was keeping them safe. Safe from whom? He looked at Carol, then at Tyler. Can we not do this in front of him? Tyler's voice came quiet. Too late. Brian flinched, a small flinch. Real. Then he looked at me again. The lender wants proof I had authority to receive those funds. You didn't. I had permission. No. You wrote checks. That is not permission to lie. I never said you couldn't handle things. You wrote dependent widow. His face shut. There it was. Not the refinance, not the office, not the lender. That phrase had been a line he did not expect me to read. Lisa stared at him. Say something. Brian looked at the porch floor. It was language. No, I said. It was a cage. He shook his head. It was a form category. Limited independent capacity. I didn't think anyone would see it. Carol said, Brian. He snapped his eyes to her. Don't. She did not back up. I changed your diapers. Don't try that voice with me. For 1 second, the old family order showed itself. Carol was not an aunt in that moment. She was a woman who had known him before he learned to perform. Brian looked away. I opened the front door. Lisa, Tyler, come in. Brian stepped forward. Mom, I need that folder. I turned back. No. It could ruin me. It could tell the truth. His voice broke at the edge. That's the same thing right now. No one answered. Inside, the house held the smell of closed curtains and coffee grounds. I set my purse on the table. Lisa locked the door behind us. Brian remained on the porch, visible through the glass panel. Tyler stood in the living room, looking at everything as if he had entered a place his father had described wrong. The chair by the window. The quilt folded square. The bills clipped by month in the wire basket. The army photo Thomas had framed after I told him not to make a fuss. Tyler walked to it. Is this you? He asked. Yes. You're standing in front. I was in command. He touched the frame with one finger. Careful. Dad said you mostly did office support. I did plenty of office work. Lisa gave a short laugh that had no joy in it. That wasn't the question. I moved to the hall closet. Carol watched me. Marion. I know. I took the button tin from the shelf. It felt lighter than it had that morning. That happens when a thing has done its job. Tyler turned. That's the password. Yes. Brian knocked once on the glass. Lisa stiffened. I set the tin on the table where he could see it through the door. His face changed. That told me enough. You knew about it, I said. He spoke through the glass. Mom, open the door. No. Please. Did you look for this? He did not answer. Carol moved to the curtain and drew it back wider. Answer your mother. Brian's jaw worked. Dad kept old stuff in there. What old stuff? Lisa asked. He looked at the tin, not at her. Papers, buttons, notes. You searched her house? Lisa said. No. I waited. He pressed his lips together. After Dad passed, I helped clean. That was 4 years ago. I saw things. You saw Thomas's note. He put both hands on the door frame. Lisa turned to me. What note? I opened the tin. The dress uniform buttons clicked softly against the metal. I took out Thomas's folded paper. It was creased at the center, soft where I had opened it too many times in one morning. I handed it to Lisa. She read it once. Then she read it again, slower. Tyler came to her side. What does it say? Lisa looked at me. Read it, I said. Her voice was not steady, but she kept it plain. Marion, if Brian has made you feel responsible for his accounts, stop. Help given from love is one thing. Help demanded by fear is another. Your records will come due. When they do, trust your own hand. She stopped. There was more, but she could not read it. I took the note back. Brian's voice came through the door. Dad didn't understand the business. I looked at him. He understood you. That landed, not loud, deep. Brian stepped back from the door as if he needed air. He looked at Tyler. Tyler looked back through the glass. Did Grandpa know? Tyler asked. Brian did not answer. Lisa opened the door before I could stop her. She did not let Brian in. She stood in the gap. Did Thomas know? She asked. Brian looked past her at me. He thought I leaned too hard. He was right. I was going to pay it back. Lisa's mouth twisted. With what? With the refinance. The one using her papers? He rubbed both hands over his face. I was stuck. No, I said from behind Lisa. You were proud. He dropped his hands. You think I wanted this? I think you wanted the room to clap. He stared at me. I kept going. At Miller's table, at closings, at church, at your office, you wanted to be the man who managed his widowed mother and still kept everybody paid. I did manage. No, you arranged. Carol said, There's a difference. Brian's phone rang again. He looked at it and did not answer. Lisa saw the screen. Is that your office? He nodded. Answer it. No. Answer it, Brian. He looked at her then. They're there. Who? The Lenders' Council and Angela from the title company. Carol muttered, Lord. I knew Angela. Everyone in Bellefontaine who had ever signed real estate papers knew Angela Mercer. She did not raise her voice. She did not miss initials. Lisa said, Why are they at your office? Brian's eyes stayed on the phone. Because there was supposed to be a pre-close review today. For what? He did not answer. I said, My house. Lisa turned. The silence told her before Brian did. He shook his head. It was not a sale. I stepped closer to the door. What was it? A possible equity line. Lisa whispered, On her house? It wasn't final. On her house? Brian snapped. It was never going to close without her signature. Then why pre-close? He had no clean sentence. I had one. Because you thought I'd comply. He looked at me. His face was wet now, though he was not crying hard, just leaking from pressure. You always did, he said. There it was. The ugliest truth is often short. Lisa stepped back from him. Tyler did too. Brian heard himself after the words left. His eyes went to Tyler first. I didn't mean that. Tyler said, Yes, you did. Brian reached toward him. Tyler moved behind Lisa. That did more damage than any paper Denise had stamped. A car pulled up behind Carol's. Then another. A dark sedan and a county vehicle. Major Keene stepped out of the sedan. Sergeant Price stepped from the passenger side with a flat folder under one arm. The county vehicle belonged to Denise. She got out with her badge clipped to her jacket. Brian turned slowly. Keene looked at the porch, then at me in the doorway. Mrs. Whitaker, he said. I nodded. Major. Brian said, Why are you here? Denise answered. Because you came to her residence after the contact note. I didn't threaten anyone. No one said you did. Keene came to the bottom step. Your office called the Veterans Service Desk. Brian's face went still. Price said, They asked whether Mrs. Whitaker had revoked authorization. I never had authorization, Brian said. Keene held his gaze. That's the issue. Lisa looked at me. Your house? Denise turned to her. The title company flagged the property description. Brian said, It was a draft packet. Denise looked at him. Using a VA support letter. Price opened the folder. And a caregiver contact sheet. Brian took one step down, then stopped. Keen said, "Stay where you are." It was not loud. It did not need to be. My porch had held family arguments before. Money, holidays, Thomas's tools, nothing like this. The street had gone quiet in that small-town way where no one admits to watching, but curtains know. Angela Mercer arrived last. She parked at the curb and carried a red file pressed to her chest. She was in black slacks and a gray sweater, neat as a ruler. She looked embarrassed to be there. She also looked angry. "Marian," she said. "Angela. I am sorry to come to your home." "Then there must be a reason." She looked at Brian. "There is." Brian said, "You shouldn't discuss client work in the street." Angela's face hardened. "You listed your mother as present for a review she never attended." "I said she would attend." "You marked the intake sheet present by phone." Lisa made a sound, not a word, a hitched breath. Angela opened the red file and pulled one page. "I called the bank after the lender suspended. The bank had a new instruction, no account letters without in-person approval." Paula had moved fast. "I liked Paula," Angela went on. "Then I called the veterans office. They told me to call Denise. Denise told me to stop processing." Brian looked at Denise. "You had no right." Denise said, "I had a duty." Price stepped beside Keen. "Mr. Whitaker, did you represent that Mrs. Whitaker required caregiver-managed finances?" Brian said nothing. "Answer," Lisa said. He turned to her. "Don't help them." "I'm not helping them. I'm hearing you." Tyler stood inside the doorway now. His face was pale. His hands were at his sides. Brian looked at his son. "I was trying to keep the office." Tyler said, "You called her a burden." Brian's mouth opened. Tyler kept going. "You called her lonely. You made me laugh along." "You didn't laugh." "I almost did." That sentence hurt him. I saw it. Good. Some pain teaches what comfort never could. Keen looked at Brian. "Lonely burden," he said. Brian closed his eyes. Keen did not raise his voice. "That phrase is now part of the record because witnesses heard it while verified military representatives were present. But I want you to understand something else." Price handed him a page. Keen read from it. "Colonel Marian Louise Whitaker carried command responsibility across 31 years active and reserve service. Her record includes Fort Knox, Fort McClellan, West Germany, and service with the 37th Infantry Brigade Combat Team in Columbus." Brian looked down. Keen folded the page once. "A burden does not carry a brigade file through audit. A burden does not sign orders that affect families. A burden does not keep count for everyone else." The word hung there. Burden. Then it was gone. Angela looked at me. "Marian, I need to ask you directly. Did you authorize any review against this property?" "No." "Did you authorize Brian Whitaker to represent your presence?" "No." "Did you agree to use military survivor or retirement documentation to support his business credit?" "No." Angela nodded once. "Then I'm closing the file." Brian turned toward her. "Angela." "No." "You know me." "I do." "Then help me fix it." "I am." She placed the red file on the porch rail and clipped the intake sheet to the front with a metal binder clip. By stopping it. Brian stared at the page. His name was there. My address was there. The little box marked phone present was there too. I had never hated a checkmark before. Lisa stepped onto the porch beside me. "What happens now?" Denise answered. "The benefits review continues. The property file stops. The lender decides its own action." Brian let out a low breath. "My office won't survive that." I said, "Then it won't." He looked at me with something close to anger, then something closer to shame. "You can say that?" "Yes. I'm your son. I know exactly who you are." That ended the argument. Not the consequences, the argument. Brian sat on the porch step. For a moment, nobody moved. He put his elbows on his knees and lowered his head. Tyler took one step forward. Lisa caught his sleeve. Brian looked up. "No," he said. Tyler froze. Brian wiped his face with his palm. "Don't come fix me." No one spoke. He looked at me next. "That's what I did to you, isn't it?" I did not soften it. "Yes." He nodded once as if the word had weight. Then he stood. "Angela," he said, "I'll come sign whatever says the file stops." Angela held the red folder tighter. "You'll come with counsel." He almost argued, then he didn't. "Okay." Denise said, "Mr. Whitaker, you need to leave the residence now." He nodded again. Lisa said, "Where are you going?" "The office." "No." He looked at her. She held up her phone. "Your father's room at home is packed with boxes from the office. Are there more papers there?" Brian's face gave the answer. Lisa closed her eyes. "I'll meet you there with Denise." Denise said, "Only if you want me present." "I do." Brian said, "Lisa." She looked at him, tired and clear. "I'm not hiding folders anymore." He nodded. Tyler said, "I'm going with Grandma." Lisa looked at me. I looked at Tyler. "You can stay for lunch." He swallowed. "Okay." Brian walked to his car. At the door, he stopped and turned back. "Mom." I waited. "I'm sorry." It was the first apology that named me with it. Not the mess, not the timing, not the pressure, me. I accepted only what he had offered. "I heard you." His face fell a little. He had wanted more. Wanting more had been his habit. He got in the car. Angela followed in hers. Denise waited for Lisa. Price and Keene stayed at the walk. Carol finally exhaled. "Well." Tyler looked at her. "Is that good or bad?" Carol said, "It's Bellefontaine. It'll be both by supper." That almost made him smile. Lisa came to me before she left. "Are you sure?" "No." She hugged me carefully, as if I had become fragile in the last 10 minutes. I let her. Then I said, "Check every box." "I will." "Don't throw papers away." "I won't." "Take pictures first." She nodded. "I know." "You do now." She pulled back. Her eyes were red, but her voice held. "I do now." When she drove off with Denise behind her, the street opened again. Keene took off his cap. "Mrs. Whitaker, do you need anything else today?" "No." Price looked at the button tin through the doorway. That was a good password. Thomas picked it before he knew he did. Keene smiled faintly. "That sounds like a husband." "It does." He offered me the folded page he had read from. "For your records." I took it. My name sat in the first line, Colonel Marion Louise Whitaker. A name can be returned to you even when you never gave it away. Price said, "The state packet will still arrive formally." "No dinner?" "No dinner." "Good." Keene put his cap back on. "Then we'll leave you to your house." My house. I liked hearing that. After they left, Carol came inside and went straight to the kitchen. "I'm making sandwiches," she said. "You don't live here." "I know where the bread is." Tyler sat at the table. The button tin was in front of him. He did not touch it. "Can I ask something?" he said. "Yes." "When Dad said you always complied, why did you?" Carol stopped at the counter. I sat across from him. "Because he was my son." "That's it?" "That's enough to make many mistakes." He thought about that. "Did Grandpa get mad?" "Yes." "At Dad?" "At both of us." "For helping." "For pretending help had no cost." Tyler nodded slowly. "Dad says family doesn't keep score." "I don't keep score." He looked at me. "I keep the count," I said. "That's different?" "Yes, a score is for winning. A count is for truth." Carol set plates down harder than needed. Eat before I start preaching. We ate turkey sandwiches with mustard. Tyler drank water from Thomas's old Brown's glass. Carol talked only when she had to. I was grateful. After lunch, Tyler helped me carry 2 boxes from the hall closet to the dining room. Not because I needed them moved, because he needed something useful to do. He found my old ribbon rack in a small case. Can I see? Yes. He opened it with both hands. This one? Meritorious Service Medal. This? Army Commendation Medal. And this? National Defense Service Medal. He studied the colors. Dad never showed me. No. Can I show people? That depends why. He looked at me. Because they should know. They should know if knowing helps them honor service, not if it helps them win an argument. He closed the case carefully. Okay. That answer mattered more than he knew. Late afternoon came through the front windows. The phone rang twice. I let it go. The bank did not need me. Denise had the password. Lisa knew to take pictures. At 4, Lisa called. I answered. Are you alone? I asked. Denise is here. Brian left with his attorney. What did you find? She breathed in. 3 boxes, copies of your benefit letters, old bank statements, a draft caregiver affidavit. Carol whispered, Of course. Lisa heard her. Carol, I'm here. Lisa said, There's also a folder marked Thomas. My hand tightened on the phone. Open it, I said. Paper shifted. Lisa went quiet. Then she said, It's receipts. For what? Checks Brian took from him before he passed. I closed my eyes. Thomas had kept count too. Lisa's voice shook. Marian, I'm sorry. Don't read them to me. Okay. Give them to Denise. I will. Then go home and sleep somewhere with a lock you trust. She was quiet. I changed the garage code, she said. Good. Tyler can stay? I looked at him. He looked back like he already knew the question. Yes. Lisa exhaled. Thank you. Lisa. Yes? You did not make his choices. I signed some things. Then fix those. I will. That was enough. After we hung up, Tyler looked at me. Mom, okay? She's awake. He nodded as if that made sense. That evening, he slept in the small back room where Brian used to sleep when he was young. I changed the sheets myself. Tyler tried to help and mostly got in the way. I let him. On the dresser sat a little wooden car Thomas had made for Brian. One wheel had always leaned left. Tyler picked it up. Was this Dad's? Yes. Can I keep it here? Yes. He set it back exactly where it had been. At the door, he said, Grandma? Yes. I don't think you're lonely. I looked at him. He rushed the rest. I mean, you might be alone sometimes, but that's not the same. No, I said, it isn't. He nodded. Good night. Good night. I went to the kitchen and washed 2 plates, 1 glass, and the knife Carol had left in the sink. Then I set the button tin beside the coffee maker for morning. Not hidden, not displayed. Just there. Before bed, I checked the front lock. Then the back. Then I looked once at the porch. Brian's car was gone. The street was plain again. Sandusky Avenue, a porch light, a cracked sidewalk, one house with the television too loud. The next morning, I woke before 6. Habit. Age changes sleep, but it does not erase formation. I made coffee. I put 1 cup on the porch table and sat in Thomas's chair because mine had the better cushion and Tyler was still asleep. The button tin sat beside the cup. A school bus passed. A neighbor lifted 2 fingers from his steering wheel. I lifted mine back. My phone buzzed. A message from Lisa. The review is logged. The title file is closed. Brian signed notice with counsel present. A second message came before I set the phone down. He asked if Tyler was okay. I read that one twice. Then I typed back, Tyler is safe. Ask him yourself when he is ready. I did not add comfort. I did not add punishment. At my age, boundaries need plain words. The front door opened behind me. Tyler came out in socks, hair flattened on one side. Is there coffee? You're 15. So no. No. He sat on the porch step. Mom texted? Yes. Dad? Yes. He waited. He asked about you, I said. Tyler looked down the street. That's something. Yes. Not everything. No. He leaned back against the rail. Can you tell me about Germany? I picked up my coffee. What do you want to know? Something real, not a speech. I thought of cold mornings, bad coffee, young soldiers pretending they weren't tired, and the first time a private asked me if women could command men. Then I looked at my grandson on the step. In 1987, I said, I learned maps don't care who is holding them. He smiled a little. That sounds like you. It was true before me. The button tin caught the morning light. Plain metal, old label. A few buttons inside, one note folded under them, and a house still in my name. Some burdens were never mine. I had only carried them too long. You didn't answer, Tyler said. I did. No, you gave me a sentence. That is usually enough. He smiled for real then. It was small, but it stayed. He pulled his knees up and looked toward Sandusky Avenue, where the morning traffic had begun to move toward downtown Bellefontaine. Were you scared over there? Yes. He looked back fast. Really? Every smart person is scared sometimes. Dad acts like scared means weak. Your father has confused noise with strength for years. Tyler took that in. He did not defend him. He did not pile on either. I respected both. My phone rang before he asked another question. It was Denise. Marion, she said, can you come to the veterans office this morning? Why? Brian's attorney is here. Angela too. There are original documents we need you to identify. Tyler stood before I did. I'm coming. Denise heard him. That's your choice, Tyler. I said, is Lisa there? She's parking now. Then we'll come. Carol drove us. She said she was not asking permission, and I did not waste breath refusing. The Logan County Veterans Service Office sat plain and low, with the flag out front snapping hard in the morning wind. I had been there before, but that morning the sidewalk looked longer. Tyler opened my door. I did not need it. I let him do it. Inside, Paula stood at the counter with a stack of copies. Her jaw was set. Marion, she said. Room 2. Brian was already there. He wore the same blue suit from the dinner, but it looked different in daylight. Wrinkled. Used up. His attorney sat beside him, a narrow man with silver glasses and a yellow pad. Angela sat across from them. Lisa stood near the wall with her arms folded. Denise had 3 boxes at her feet. Major Keene was not there. Sergeant Price was. She rose when I entered, not fully formal, still enough. Mrs. Whitaker? Sergeant. Brian looked at Tyler first. Hey. Tyler said, hi. That was all. It was not cruel. It was not warm. Denise pointed to the table. We need originals separated from copies. Anything belonging to Marion leaves with Marion. Brian's attorney said, my client is cooperating. Carol sat down behind me. Then he can cooperate faster. Denise ignored that. She opened the first box. Marion, do you recognize this? It was a bank statement from 2 years earlier. My name. My account. A transfer line circled in blue. Yes. Did you write this note? She slid a sticky note forward. Increase after tax issue. Tell Mom medical. No. Brian lowered his eyes. Lisa said, that's your handwriting. He nodded. Yes. No one moved. The attorney wrote something down. Denise lifted another page. This is the draft caregiver affidavit. I read the first line, then the second. I stopped there. It said I needed assistance with financial decisions. It said Brian had been providing routine management. It said my memory was inconsistent. My memory is fine, I said. Brian's face tightened. Price leaned forward. Mrs. Whitaker, did anyone from our office assess you for that statement? No. Did you ask for a caregiver representative? No. Did you authorize your military survivor records for business lending? No. The attorney spoke softly. Mr. Whitaker acknowledges the drafts were improper. They were not finalized. Angela turned one page around. This one was sent. The room changed. Not loud. Worse. Brian looked at the page. His attorney took it fast, read the header, and stopped writing. Angela said, "It went to the lender's underwriting portal at 7:42 p.m. Monday." Brian swallowed. It was incomplete. It had her name, Angela said. It had her address. It had a VA letter attached. Price opened her flat folder. It also had a cropped service document. I looked at Brian. He could not hold my face. Price placed the cropped page beside the original. The cropped one showed only enough to make me look dependent on support. The original showed the full chain, rank, dates, retirement status, contact protections. Tyler stepped closer to Lisa. "Dad," he said, "you cut off the top." Brian pressed both palms to the table. I was trying to keep payroll. Lisa laughed once. It had no humor in it. "Payroll," she said. "That's what you called Grandma?" Brian looked at me. "Mom." "No," I said. "Answer her." He breathed through his nose. "I used the file." "For what?" Lisa asked. "To show stable household support." "Whose support?" He looked at the box. "Mine," I said. Denise pulled the red file from Angela's stack. "The lender has pulled the refinance review. The title company is returning the property packet. The benefits misuse review is now active." The attorney said, "We understand." Denise looked at him. "I'm saying it for Marion." I appreciated that. Price slid one more paper toward me. It was the allotment cancellation form. My signature sat there, neat and dark. The notary stamp was clean. The date was from before the dinner. Brian stared at it longer than he had stared at anything else. "You signed before Miller's table," he said. "Yes." "You knew." "I knew enough." He sat back. "So dinner was a trap?" "No," I said. "Dinner was my birthday." That landed harder than I expected. His face changed. He looked older than 53, not innocent, just visible. Carol leaned forward. "Don't you dare make her the planner of your choices." Brian nodded once. "She's right." His attorney touched his sleeve. Brian moved his arm away. "No," Brian said. "She's right." He turned to Denise. "There's another folder." Lisa said, "Where?" "At the office. Bottom drawer. It has the tax letters." Angela closed her eyes. Denise said, "Are they Marion's?" Some are mine." "Were her documents used?" Brian looked at me, then at Tyler. "Yes." Tyler sat down. He looked suddenly tired. Brian spoke again, quieter. "I changed the labels." Price said, "Labels?" "Office debt became care expense. Property tax became home safety. I made it look like Mom was the reason money moved." He swallowed hard. She wasn't. The room held still. That was the first clean thing he had said. Lisa covered her mouth. Carol looked at the window. I kept my hands folded. Denise wrote the sentence down. Then she dated it. "Say it again," she said. Brian looked at her. "For the record," Denise said. He took a breath. "I made my mother look dependent because I needed the cover." The attorney shut his eyes. Price picked up the original service record and placed it above the cropped one. The missing top line was now visible to everyone. "Colonel Marion Louise Whitaker." Tyler read it. I saw his lips move around the rank. Brian saw him read it too. That may have been the bill he could not pay. Denise gathered the caregiver packet, clipped it with a black binder clip, and stamped "Hold" across the front. The sound was flat and final. Paula came in with a clipboard. Denise handed it to her. "No caregiver letter leaves this office without the veteran in the room," Denise said. Paula nodded, crossed Brian's name off the contact sheet, and wrote my phone number in dark ink. In the lobby, an older man waited with his daughter. Paula looked at their paperwork, then pointed to 2 chairs beside her desk. "Both of you," she said. "We'll verify it together. No speech, no lesson, just the next file handled correctly." Back in room 2, Brian reached into his jacket and took out my house key, then a second key, then a small brass one I had not seen in years. "Garage," he said. "Back door, Thomas's desk." My hand tightened at that last one. "How long have you had that?" He did not dodge. "Since Dad went into the hospital." "You never returned it?" "No." He set the keys on the table. The brass one made the smallest sound. "I went into his desk after," he said. "I found receipts. I thought if I kept them, you wouldn't have to know." Carol said, "That's a polished sentence." Brian nodded. "I kept them because they proved it." He looked at Lisa. "And because I didn't want you to see." Lisa's voice was low. "I've seen enough." "I know. You'll bring that folder today." "I already called Mike. He's driving it over." His attorney stiffened. "Brian." Brian looked at him. "No, I'm done feeding this thing." That was not noble. It was late. Late still counts when the door is closing. Tyler stood. "Did Grandpa know?" Brian's mouth worked once before sound came. "Yes." "What did he say?" Brian looked at me. I answered instead. "He told him a man can drown in excuses." Tyler looked at his father. "Did you listen?" "No," Brian said. The boy nodded. One short movement. It had more judgment than shouting. A courier from Brian's office arrived 20 minutes later. Not Mike. A young assistant named Claire with frightened eyes and a canvas bag. She looked at Brian before handing it over. "I didn't know what was in it," she said. Brian said, "I know." She did not look relieved. Angela opened the bag with Denise watching. The bottom drawer folder was inside. So were 2 office checks, unmailed tax notices, and a printout of a draft listing for my house. Tyler saw the photo first. My porch, my front window, Thomas's chair just visible through the glass. "You took pictures of her house?" he said. Brian rubbed his forehead. "For valuation." "You said buyer." "I had a buyer interested." Lisa turned on him. "You told me she agreed." "I told myself she would." That was close enough to truth to hurt. Angela took the listing sheet and wrote void across it. Then she signed her name and slid it to Denise. "This office won't touch the property," Angela said. "Not mine." Brian nodded. Denise put the listing with the title packet. "Marion, do you want copies?" "Yes." Paula stepped in again. "I'll make them now." I said, "Only the pages with my name." Brian looked up. "You don't want the rest?" "No, those are yours." He understood. I was not sorting his ruin for him. Sergeant Price closed the service file. "Mrs. Whitaker, Major Keene asked me to confirm one more item." I waited. "The delayed commendation record has been corrected. Notice now goes directly to you. No family intermediary." "Good." "The citation copy is yours." She handed me a clean folder. I did not open it. I knew what was inside now. I had heard enough of my own name in public to last the day. Price said, "There may still be a formal presentation available." "No." She nodded. "Understood." Brian looked surprised. "You don't want it?" "I wanted my papers straight." "But you earned it." I know. That ended that. When we left the office, the wind had settled. Bellefontaine looked ordinary again. Cars turned toward Main Street. A delivery truck blocked half a lane. Someone honked and then gave up. On the sidewalk, Brian stopped a few feet from me. His attorney waited by the curb. Lisa stood with Tyler near Carol's car. "Mom," Brian said, "can I come by later?" "No." He took that without arguing. "Can I call Tyler tonight?" Tyler answered before I did. "Text first." Brian nodded. "Okay." Tyler's voice shook, but he kept it steady enough. "And don't ask me to make Grandma answer." Brian looked at him. "I won't." I believed that for the hour. Sometimes an hour is all a person owns. Brian turned back to me. "I don't know what happens now. Neither do I. I'm scared. I expect so." He waited for comfort. I had some. I did not hand it over. "Get counsel," I said. "Tell the truth. Start there." He looked at the pavement. "Will you ever let me make this right?" I thought of Thomas's desk key. I thought of the cropped page. I thought of my porch in a draft listing without my consent. "You can make things right," I said. "That doesn't mean you get the same place back." He nodded. His eyes filled, but he did not perform it. That helped. Lisa walked over. "I'm taking Tyler home after lunch." Tyler looked at me fast. I said, "He can choose." Lisa said, "He has school tomorrow." "It's summer," Tyler said. Lisa blinked. "Right." Carol muttered, "That's where we are." For the first time all morning, Lisa almost smiled. Tyler said, "Can I stay until dinner?" Lisa looked at me. "Yes," I said, "but he washes the lunch plates." Tyler said, "Deal." Brian watched that small negotiation as if it was happening behind glass. Then he stepped back. He did not ask for a hug. That was his best choice of the day. Carol drove us to my house. She did not turn on the radio. Tyler held the folder with the citation copy on his lap. I had not asked him to. He had picked it up when my hands were full. At the house, I put Thomas's desk key in the button tin. Then I took it back out. Tyler noticed. "Wrong place?" "Too easy." I opened the drawer beside the stove, moved the rubber bands, and set the key under the old flashlight. "You'll remember that?" "Yes." He grinned. "That's very Grandma." It has worked so far. Carol made soup from a can and acted offended when we thanked her. Tyler washed bowls afterward. He used too much soap. I did not correct him until the bubbles climbed over the divider. "Half that," I said. "Sorry. Soap is cheaper than a plumber." He rinsed slower. While he worked, he said, "Grandma?" "Yes." "When Dad said you signed before dinner, did that mean you knew he'd say something awful?" "No." "But you thought he might?" "I thought he would need my silence." Tyler turned off the water. "And you didn't give it." "I gave him plenty before." He dried his hands. "Did Grandpa's note say that?" I looked toward the button tin on the counter. It said enough. "Can I read it?" I almost said no. Habit rose first. Protection, privacy, old marriage. Then I remembered Thomas had written it for the day records came due. The boy had stood in that room and heard his father tell the truth. He did not need the whole marriage. He needed the line that mattered. I opened the tin and lifted the folded note from under the buttons. Thomas's handwriting leaned hard to the right. It always had. I held it for a moment before handing it over. Tyler read silently. His face changed at the last sentence. He looked up. He said, "Don't pay twice." Yes. What did he mean? That love can pay once. Fear keeps paying. Tyler folded the note exactly along the old crease. "Can I remember that?" "Yes." Not as an argument. "Good." He put it back under the buttons. Then he set the tin on the counter, centered between the coffee maker and the bread box. At 4, Lisa returned. She came inside alone. "Brian's at the attorney's office," she said. He gave Denise the tax folder. "Good." He also called the lender himself. Carol raised her eyebrows. "Did he now?" Lisa nodded. "He said the support documents weren't valid." I said nothing. Lisa looked at Tyler. "You ready?" He looked at the wooden car still sitting on the small dresser down the hall. "Can I come back Saturday?" I said, "Ask your mother." Lisa said yes. He picked up his backpack and came to me. This time he did not ask permission. He hugged me around the shoulders. He was taller than Brian had been at 15. I felt the sharp bones of him and the uncertain strength. "I'll text," he said. "Use words, not just pictures." "Okay." At the door, he turned back. "Colonel?" Lisa froze. Carol looked at me. I said, "Yes?" Tyler stood a little straighter, not mocking, not playing. "Permission to leave?" I wanted to laugh. I wanted to cry. I did neither. "Granted." He nodded once and went out to the car. Lisa stayed in the doorway. "Marion." I waited. "I signed things because I didn't read them." "That's yours to fix." "I know." "Then fix it." She nodded. "I am." She stepped forward and put my house key on the small table by the door. "I had a copy," she said. "Brian gave it to me last year. I should have told you." "Yes." "I'm sorry." I picked up the key. "I heard you." She accepted the same answer he had received. That was fair. Fair can feel cold when people expected rescue. After they left, Carol gathered her purse. "You want me to stay?" "No." "You want me to leave soup?" "Yes." She smiled. "That I can do." At the porch, she paused. "You did all right today." I did what was next. "That's all right" means. She went down the steps and crossed to her car. I stood at the door until she pulled away. The house settled around me. Not empty, settled. I walked through each room once, not checking for danger, checking for ownership. The hall closet, the dining room table, the back bedroom with fresh sheets, Thomas's desk still closed, my chair by the window. At the kitchen counter, I opened the clean folder Price had given me. The citation copy was on top. The wording was formal and dry. I liked that. Formal language can hold weight without begging. My name was correct. My rank was correct. The dates were correct. I placed it in the drawer with my insurance papers, not in a frame. Then I took out the button tin again. One loose brass button rolled against the side. I put Thomas's note beneath it and closed the lid. Before supper, I called Paula. "Veterans office," she said. "It's Marion. I was hoping you'd call." "Why?" "You left without your copy packet." "I'll get it tomorrow." "No rush. It's locked." "Thank you." She paused. Denise changed the intake checklist. "What changed?" "2 signatures now. Veteran or widow first, caregiver second." I looked out at my porch steps. "That's good." "She used your file as the example." "She used my name?" "No. Just the blank form." "Better." Paula said, "Yes, ma'am." I hung up and warmed Carol's soup. I ate at the kitchen table, not in front of the television. The evening news talked about road work near Columbus and a school board vote I did not follow. Ordinary trouble, ordinary noise. At 7, Tyler texted, "Home. Mom made pasta. Dad texted first, then another. I didn't answer yet. I typed, 'You don't have to hurry.' He sent back, 'I know.' That was enough for one day." Before bed, I took Brian's keys from my purse. I put the garage key and back door key in a small envelope for the locksmith. Thomas's desk key stayed under the flashlight. I wrote nothing on the envelope. I knew what it was. The phone rang once more. Brian. I let it ring. Then a text came. I told Tyler I'm sorry. I didn't ask him to answer. I'll bring the remaining copies to Denise tomorrow. I read it twice. Then I set the phone face down. There are apologies that need time under them. Otherwise, they float away. I turned off the kitchen light and left the porch light on. The street outside was quiet enough to hear a truck shift gears at the corner. Somewhere down Sandusky Avenue, a dog barked once and stopped. I slept 6 hours. For me, that was nearly extravagant. Morning came pale and cool. I made coffee before the first bus went by. I set 1 cup on the porch table and carried Thomas's button tin outside. A locksmith's van rolled slowly along the curb, looking for my number. I lifted my hand. The button tin sat beside my cup. The new key blank flashed in the locksmith's hand.